Good evening. It is 5:30 p.m. Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. And this regular meeting of the Sandpoint City Council is now called to order in council chambers at City Hall, 1123 West Lake Street, Sandpoint, Idaho. For the record, I am City Council President Deb Rule presiding this evening. Also present are councilors Jewel Spiro, Justin Dick, Kyle Schreiber, Pam Duquette, and Rick Howarth. Mayor Grimm is out of town, but as you can see, is attending remotely, but has asked me to preside over the meeting. Under the city's adopted code of ethics and civility, as the presiding officer, I am to identify law enforcement personnel serving as Sergeant at Arms for this evening's meeting. Tonight, we have Sergeant Mike Hutter in the back of the room. And if everyone will please stand, and we will recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The next portion of our meeting will be announcements and reports. Mr. Mayor, do you have any announcements or reports?
I do. Thank you so much, President Rule. I would like to make a brief statement to address some recent social media lore regarding parking that I believe may be circulating out there. The subject of parking will continue to be an active topic in Sandpoint over the next probably 6 months to year. Presently, there are two independent parking topics that appear to be conflated by some members of the public. There's the paid parking policy that Director Welker is working on, and that will soon arrive before you. This policy, if enacted, will then result in further analysis and research into the implementation of the paid parking policy, involving research into the proper technology and process by which it will be applied. Again, that policy, I presume, will come to you this spring. It's been vetted through numerous committees and commissions and will eventually end up before the council for consideration and feedback. The next and the primary intent of these comments is related to assertions or suggestions and accusations by apparently very misinformed individuals that there's been some misconduct by myself or staff related to the proposed new hotel at 56 Bridge Street. And I just want to walk through a couple of quick things here to clarify the facts. First, City Code 951E provides each property owner the right and opportunity to perform a site-specific demand analysis, showing the actual parking demand for a given occupancy or use of a building. Rather than relying on the Institute of Traffic Engineers, or ITE, and their demand tables, which are widely known to be flawed due to the limited sample size and geographic characteristics that they use, the applicant or the property owner of 56 Bridge Street chose to do a site-specific, geographic-specific analysis. This regional specific study confirmed that the actual demand for parking was 141 spaces, not the 240 called out for hotel uses in the ITE manual. This figure represents 95 fewer spaces than the ITE chart. This 141 spaces is the required parking for a hotel in Sandpoint, Idaho. So that's the first thing, is they did the study. It showed 95 fewer are demanded for this hotel at this site in our region, and that is the required parking. City Code authorizes the planning director, as you know, 951, to accept and adopt this study. So that has been done. There's another portion of the code, which is the in lieu fee. That is City Code 9518. And we've adopted this in lieu parking program, and it's guided by several goals to why we have adopted it. Those goals are found 9518B. And those include to creatively reduce parking requirements where appropriate, to reduce the cost of development by reducing funds required to build parking lots, to facilitate the construction and improvement of parking, to improve the urban design, to encourage shared parking, and to support historic preservation. That in lieu fee program charges $10,000 per space, which is reduced from the required parking. In this case, any spaces below the 141. This fee is paid at the time of building permit application. Related to this site, no building permit application for a hotel has been submitted. No fees have been collected. No money has been exchanged. In theory, the property owners could utilize the in lieu fees to satisfy up to half of their required parking. Half of the 141 would be 72. So in theory, they could pay for 72 spaces and not build 72. At this point, I want to say that I very much appreciate the efforts of the property owners to discuss a win-win solution for their investment in Sandpoint. Staff has acted 100% appropriate, and truthfully, there is no missing $500,000 or related shenanigans. Again, I just want the public to know to reach out to the city for accurate facts related to projects, finances, or related matters. With that, council members, if you have any further questions related to the paid parking policy that's in the works or site-specific development applications, please feel free to reach out to me or to staff. And with that, thank you so much, Council President Rule, for presiding over this meeting.
President Rule, can I ask him to clarify one more thing or not?
Mr. Grimm, would you like to clarify? Counselor Kett.
Go ahead, Councilwoman Duquette.
Does it change with condos on top?
With the parking demand change with condos, again, I don't know the answer to that specifically. I imagine we'd refer back to the parking demand study. It may, but again, I would go back to this project is in its initial stages. We don't have a building permit. We don't have any analysis related to what they are actually going to build and submit. They just have the use permit, which allows a 10,000 square foot or larger footprint to be constructed on the site. So we will have, Director Welker will have more information if and when a application for building permit is submitted.
Thank you, Mayor Grimm.
You bet.
Do council members have any announcements or reports this evening?
Sure, Madam President. A couple of things here. Bonner General Health's Heart Ball is coming up this Saturday over at the fairgrounds. All proceeds will go to a swing bed program where patients can transition from acute care to skilled nursing facility care without actually leaving the hospital. The Heart Ball is our largest annual fundraiser. We're completely sold out, but you can still go on if you'd like to make a donation to bonnergeneral.org/foundation and make your donation there. We also had an arts, culture, and historic preservation meeting last week. A couple of details. Last time I shared with you that we are working on the big bellied trash can art program here. We've got that dialed in a little bit more, and we sent that over to the city. There will be a pickup, I believe, over at the Paint Bucket, and maybe a few more locations as well too. So we'll have some more information coming out in probably the next 7 to 10 days. The Daughters of the American Revolution, we're looking at a plaque installation at Memorial Field over by the War Memorial Obelisk. That's on the northeast corner, I believe. I'm kind of looking at Ellie over there to get some head shakes. We talked a little bit more about the Certified Local Government Grant. This would be the grant that would allow us to work with our planning team, work with the Arts, Culture, Historic Preservation team, start taking a look at some historic overlays in the downtown corridors, some building heights, and a few other things that the public has wanted over the course of the last year. I think most importantly, we had a sad goodbye. Heather Upton is no longer with the city. She was amazing during her over 2.5 years that she was here. She brought a ton of people from the art community to the restaurants, to the realtors, to downtown Sandpoint into the city. She will greatly be missed. She's got an unbelievable skill set, so we're excited to see what she does after that. Lastly, I have spent the last 2 days with the Spot Bus crew. We are working on budget for 2026. We hope to present sometime in the next 30 to 45 days. Right now, assuming that we get the same amount of money and maybe just a little bit more that we got from the cities and counties that we receive funds from, that we're probably be in the hole about $90,000. With that said, we have come up with an advertising strategy to advertise on the back of the buses and the sides of the buses. That still will not make us whole completely. We are right now looking at strategies in terms of how to change the bus routes to make them more efficient, streamline cost, as well as potentially shorten hours on Saturdays and Sundays, all which will have negative unintended consequences for several of our community members as well. The one thing I'd like this council to think about as we get more into the parking talk is how can Spot Bus help with parking in this community? It's something we're already doing. There's plenty of case studies all across the country, Seattle specifically, where they reduced the minimum parking requirement on their buildings downtown, and they beefed up the public transportation to make sure that people were ride sharing, they were getting there, getting home, and not using every parking space that was down there. So I look forward to presenting here in the short future, and we look forward to working with the staff on seeing how we can help the parking solution at City Beach and all around downtown Sandpoint. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Dick. Is there anyone else has announcements or?
Yeah, we had our
Counselor Spiro.
monthly Parks and Rec Commission meeting, 12th. We did it at 2:30 instead of 3. The next meeting will be, I believe, March 12th at 2:30 as well. We invite the public. There were some members of the public there. It was a great meeting, discussed parking, paid parking. We discussed pros, cons, questions, solutions / changes, and other. Definitely invite the citizens to show up and you're able to speak. If you missed it, it's on the City of Sandpoint YouTube page, and we're Jason Welker passed up the most recent updated draft, and he provided a brief overview. So if you want to get up to date, you can check that out on YouTube, and definitely invite you to come to the next meeting. It was great.
Thank you, Counselor Spiro. No one else? Okay, well, I will take the opportunity to make the next announcement. The Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee met on February 13th. And the members were present: Kate Houston, Molly, Julie, Radley Peterson, Reed, Aaron. Absent were Jennifer and Evan. We did take a resignation from Taylor Prather. Approved minutes. We continued to discuss public lake access at Ella, Euclid, and Division Streets. Mr. Staglin shared that he did not have an update on the items. We worked on funding to build sidewalks down to lake access and signage, benches, and possible landscapes in those areas. And then new business, there were some brief reports from the subcommittees. Ms. Billings shared an update from Event Subcommittee Bike to Work as a potential event in May. Ms. O'Reilly shared intersection subcommittee dividing up tasks. And Mr. Peterson shared an update from Multimodal Transportation Master Plan Subcommittee, who's looking at the First Avenue project with city staff and plans to have notes on that committee. And then Ms. Billings announced that due to scheduling conflicts, Development Subcommittee didn't meet. We discussed some downtown parking management, also downtown parking lot reconstruction concepts, and then Mr. Staglin postponed further discussions on old business, and the meeting was adjourned at that point. So if that, no more announcements from anybody else?
May I make one more comment? Also, thank you to the leadership Sandpoint group that came to the city today for their governance class. And a big kudos to Jason Welker, who led our presentation. It was wonderful to see. I think we had approximately 20 of them come through today, and they spent most of the day here at the city.
Thank you, Councilman Dick. I will now yield the floor to staff for some quick reports from the departments. Looks like Mr. Welker is starting us off.
Good evening, Council. Thanks for your time. I'm going to be back up a little later to talk about some parks capital projects, so I won't comment on those during my update now. I do want to just mention, in response to Mayor Grimm's comments about the City Beach Hotel project, I do want to assure you that the hotel developers have been paying close attention to the conversations going on at the city. They're very aware of the concerns and anxiety about potential impact on City Beach parking availability, and they've been very responsive. And they have informed the planning team that they are in talks with Bonner General Health and with the Sandpoint, the Lake Pend Oreille School District about potential use of the unused parking facilities on weekends during the summer at the hospital and the schools, in the case that there are special events that take place. One of the common concerns was that, what if there's a wedding with 200 guests at the hotel in the summer? There won't be parking for 200 wedding guests in addition to regular hotel guests. The hotel is already in talks with other organizations of the community that have large parking lots, and off-site parking will need to be provided for events like that, just like the festival at Sandpoint does currently with the school district. So just to let you know, these are conversations that have emerged from this public engagement that we've done around the parking management plan and around concerns with the City Beach Hotel's parking. So I have a few updates from my different divisions for you. First, I'll talk about what's going on in the planning division. We've got a busy month ahead in the Planning and Zoning Commission, which met for its first time with the newly appointed commissioners earlier this month. We're going to meet twice next month. We're going to hear the first planned unit development application in a few years, and we're going to be talking about the area of city impact, which is now referred to as the area of impact under state law. It's likely that both of these will come to a future city council meeting, but you can expect to see those both coming before the P&Z Commission in March. We'll be meeting twice next month. Recreation division, we've got a lot going on. We are ramping up for spring recreation programming season. The sports center is seeing increasing use from other sporting groups besides tennis and pickleball. Sandpoint Lacrosse is on week 3 of 3 nights a week of practice at the sports center. They've been using 1 or 2 courts for kind of preseason training. The sports center, that seems to be going really well. I have put Katie and Daniel in touch with the athletic director, TJ Clary from the school district. They're looking at doing some preseason indoor baseball and softball training in there. No live batting practice. Indoor balls will be required, of course, but they do need a place to do some fielding and throwing practice before the turf fields at Memorial are available later in April. So we're seeing different sports in there. And next Monday, the Sandpoint High School tennis team starts their 5 days a week of practice. That's going to go through mid-April at least. So we're going to see a ton of youth use in there over the next few months by multiple sporting groups. Memberships are ticking up. We've made some changes to the operating schedule based on feedback. And the response has been really good to the kind of looser operating schedule now. You don't have to show up right at the start of a 90-minute block. We've got basically like 4-hour chunks now where it's priority tennis or priority pickleball. The community seems to really be liking that, and memberships have increased as a result. The staff also recommended waiving reservation fees for members. So that's been a huge hit as well. We're seeing a lot more reservations, and since people can now make reservations without paying a $10 fee, they're more willing to buy that membership because that's perceived as a member benefit now. So we're kind of tweaking the operations. Next Monday, the whole rec team and the parks team are coming together for 3 hours to prepare our new fee schedule. It's fee schedule time. You guys are going to start seeing drafts of the fee schedule in April. So all of my divisions are working on fee updates to bring to you later this spring. Our new rec software is going to roll out either later this week or next week. I hope to give you guys a demo of that at your next meeting to show you what the future will look like for not only the sports center use, but also moorage, reserving slips at our City Beach marinas, reserving campsites at the City Beach campground, reserving picnic shelters, signing up for youth programs, signing up for adult programs. We're going to have a whole new platform ready to go here in the next week, and I will demo that for you at our next meeting. Some of the programs that we have registration for open right now. We have partnered with Skyhawks to offer youth basketball, tennis, and pickleball. Registration is open now. Those programs are going to start in March. And then soon we're going to be opening up registration for our spring break camp. There's a chess festival at Community Hall on April 5th being organized by the rec division. Like a chess competition. Youth track, that's always a big one. My daughter's done it for 3 years. I know your kids do it. Can't wait for youth track. That starts March 26th and goes through May 24th. That's a city program. And then summer camp pre-registration and summer softball league pre-registration will open up in the next month. So a lot going on in the rec world. I'll just give you an update on the parks management plan. We've now gone to ped bike, sustainability, parks and rec twice, and planning and zoning twice with updates and to get feedback on the proposed parking management plan. The next step is going to be reaching out to local businesses. So Holly and I are actually presenting to the Chamber of Commerce on March 13th at their monthly meeting. They've dedicated about 40 minutes of that monthly meeting for a engagement around the parking management plan. And I am planning to schedule a special meeting with this 37-member Downtown Business Association to talk about how paid parking at the city lot might impact local businesses and employees at local businesses, because we want to really accommodate those downtown businesses, since one of the primary purposes is to increase availability of parking for shoppers and customers at those businesses. So we're going to reach out to those businesses next month. We also expect to have a survey ready to send out to the whole community sometime in March. And I don't believe we're going to have any, final draft of a proposal ready for council before April, but possibly in April we'll have something to bring before you for consideration. And I think that's it for me. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Any questions? I do.
Okay.
May I?
Yes. Counselor Duquette?
Yeah, playground.
Mhm.
So I was down there not too long ago and there was a family playing and she had quite a few comments. I asked her to write so that I could share, but she has not yet. Are we building swings, other swings, things for the older kids, or is the
Which
ADA
playground are you talking about?
I'm sorry, Travers.
Travers?
Like the ADA playground, they were there, but there was nothing for the older kids like swings, slide. And I can't remember if that is part of doing the playground down at
Currently,
Travers.
the playgrounds, I think it's 87% complete according to my report for you later tonight.
But
So
it-
the equipment that's there is the equipment that's going to be there. It's mostly landscaping and the splash pad that are still to be done. So
Okay.
I know there's a swing set with 3 swings there now, and then there's the big kind of hammock swing that is doubles as like a
Right.
surfboard type feature. So yeah, there are 3 swings now, and then there's the dual zip line. So I'm not sure what kind of swings they're looking for, but the swings
Something
that we
for
have.
older children, like 10 through 14, 10 through 15 or something. Other, like we had, and I'm just wondering, she was questioning. She also wondered if there was going to be any shelter in there, like they
We
had
have
before.
presented the Rotary Club, you might recall.
Don't recall.
Well, there was a Rotary picnic shelter
Yeah,
that
oh, yeah,
was intended to be relocated to the new playground.
Okay,
The Rotary Club reached out and asked us to not reinstall that shelter. It was going to require about $18,000 of rehab work. So we just determined to not install that, with the expectation that the Rotary Club would undertake a fundraising campaign this
you
year.
remember that.
So
all right,
the Rotary
okay.
Club has been briefed. I presented to them back in, I don't know, October or November. They have some options. They have not been incredibly responsive in the last couple of months in terms of their plan to fundraise for that. So it may not happen this year, but we do hope to have a new Rotary picnic shelter there. The one that was removed was 28 years old. So when it was moved, we found that most of the wood was rotted and it was going to cost a lot of money to rehab it. And the Rotary Club specifically asked not to, with the suggestion that they would like to install a new one. So it might not happen this year. It is actually on our Parks Capital Improvement Plan for this year. But I will just say that we haven't made much progress with Rotary Club on a fundraising effort. I know that they're undertaking many other big fundraising efforts right now. So it might be a future project, but there's a place for it. There's a footprint, a 24 by 24 foot footprint for it that's dedicated for a future picnic shelter.
But
And we'd
no,
love to have, Rotary or any other nonprofit organization in the community support that, as has been done throughout Sandpoint's history.
Thank you,
That's-
Mr.
I'm sorry, but that's it for the playground. That's all the playground equipment besides the splash pad.
That is the playground equipment and the splash pad and the nature play area that our team built. We are going to install some new swing sets at City Beach this summer. So we will be putting some new swing sets there, but nothing additional at Traverse Park.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah,
Welker.
thank you.
Madam Clerk, if you could split the screen so the speakers can be viewed by anybody who might be online with the mayor.
Madam President,
Mhm.
online, they do see that split screen.
Okay, is there any reason we're not seeing it today?
You certainly can if you'd like. Just one moment here. That should fix it next time somebody comes up. We'll see.
Thank you. It looks like the fire chief would like to be next.
See if we can split that screen for
All right.
You can put your whole face if you want.
you. That reserve that for Corey. We'll let him do that. Just a quick update from Sandpoint Fire Department today. As Councilman Dick said, we participated in the Leadership Sandpoint. They stopped by. We did a joint presentation with Bonner County EMS, and it went really well. Our last meeting, I presented some of the statistics for us to review, and Councilman Horwath, you had a question about how it would relate or correlates to population as far as the incidence goes. So I did a little quick deal, just going by the census so we go back to 22, 21, 20, that's like the years of the asterisk. So we don't really go by those because everything was skewed. But it looks like our population from 22 to 23, of course, the 24 numbers haven't come out yet. Looks like we went up a little more than 2% in our population, and our incident volume has gone up around 11% year over year from 22, 23, and 24. So we'll kind of see how that plays in that 24 number. But as a rule of thumb, 22, we had about 70 incidents per 1,000 people, and in 23, we had about 82 incidents per 1,000 people. And the only other update that I have is that Councilman Schreiber, we had talked a little bit about the grant project for fuels reduction. It was the holiday weekend. We got into a little bit late, but did get some feedback. And I think all the players for that application have all been engaged now. So we're starting to get a little bit of traction, and I'll update you again as soon as we get some more information.
Excellent, thank
Oh,
you.
no worries if nobody else has any questions. Yeah, all right,
Thanks, chief.
excellent.
And up next is our Public Works Director, Miss Ellis.
Thank you, Councilor President and Council. Couple updates from Public Works. So our project manager and our Public Works tech interviews, 2 vacant positions that we're trying to fill. I suppose 3, our street supervisor is also a position that Chet Jackman has resigned effective March 31st. His position is now posted online, and we're taking applications for our street supervisor. So more to come on staffing. Hopefully we've got some good new team members to bring on. Today, keeping with streets, our street crew was out brining for the snow event that we've got now. They're also wrapping up plowing efforts on the local streets. From a project standpoint, we have 2 active construction public works projects. We'll go into kind of some budget updates tonight, but Bridge Street rehab, the pier pile rehab that's going on over at Sand Creek. They're almost to their last set of piers. So they'll be starting that last set of piers next week. So they should be wrapped up before the end of March, and that project's going on time and expected to be delivered within budget. Our other public works project that we have is our lift station projects. It's a big rehab project of 2 of our lift stations, one at City Beach and then the other one at First and Superior. That project is also on schedule, anticipated to be on budget. That's a $1.2 million project. So it's a big construction effort going on right now. And they've been fortunate to be able to work through this winter, and cold weather hasn't slowed them down too much. We are also working on a public outreach plan. So what are the public outreach efforts that need to be taken for a capital project to make it through our process? So expect that to be coming to council in March. Another item we hope to bring to you, council, in March is the downtown phase 3, the concept. So you'll remember we've got our multimodal plan, which has a concept for First Avenue and Bridge Street. We also have a design competition report. So before we engage an engineer and start the design process, we just want to bring it to council and get your feedback on those 2 concepts. And finally, last but not least on the list, wastewater treatment plant. We had the first open house educational series. The topic was basics of wastewater treatment. It was pretty well attended. It was 15 folks that we had. No written comment from anybody. I did have one person mention that they were interested in joining a commission if one were to come about, which the plan is to do so. So I think it was a very well-received forum. I really enjoyed it. It seems like the folks really enjoyed it. Tomorrow is our next topic is on inflow and infiltration, otherwise known as I&I. And that's all I have for you for updates.
Ms. Ellis, can you tell the public when the meeting is tomorrow?
It's a noon, right here in council chambers, noon to 1.
Thank you.
And if it is on our website, on our news page as well, if you're interested in other topics coming up.
Madam President, if I may ask Holly something?
Briefly, please.
Yeah. Log trucks. I happened to be out for a couple of hours on First Avenue 2 days ago, and 3 loaded log trucks came off, obviously 95. I don't know where they went. I didn't pay attention for a minute, and then it's like, that's a logging truck not supposed to be down here. So of course they didn't go up Pine or Lake. I have no idea where they're going, but I'm just wondering again about if a sign farther back on 95 would help, or if they're just doing it because they can and they're not getting ticketed, or I'm just saying.
We do have truck signs at the byway exit into town.
You have,
And on Superior Street as well. I'll bring this up with Corey Kuhn. It's something he's been monitoring and paying attention to.
okay.
We sort of suspect that suspect that Pine has had a lot of attention and that they're, taking other paths, not taking Pine Street anymore, but they moved to Church. So maybe we need to move our enforcement to
Because
First.
if they go to Church, the stop sign, I can't imagine how they're turning on Fifth, but I know they're doing something. I know they're going somewhere. Because I did ask when Chief Coon spoke once about putting a sign a little farther back, because it's just right there at the exit. And if they are paying attention and they're starting to get off and then they see the sign, they would not be able to veer back. I don't know if that would help or if they're just trying to get away with something, but
I appreciate that feedback.
I
We'll look into it
noticed.
for sure.
thanks.
Madam President?
Yes.
She just reminded me the Pine Street intersection there. Is that considered complete, or do we have more signage and paint for the lanes coming?
So we've got, it's in closeout, so they are substantially complete, waiting on final completion. They have some punch list items that they need to clean out. A pavement marking is one of them. It's really an item that is going to be a kind of a warranty item. So if you notice, some of that pavement marking has already worn off in some places. So they'll come back and they'll fix that. That is really weather dependent. They can't do that work in the winter because the paint doesn't stick to the road. So there's some cleanup items that they'll need to close out. And then we're also waiting on some paperwork before we give them their final payment. So the answer is they are substantially complete, working on some minor closeout items.
Okay. The thing that I've seen virtually every time I've gone through that intersection is that people going westbound aren't sure which lane to be in to go continue straight. And I've seen a near miss virtually every time I go through that intersection. So I think it might warrant some additional signage to clarify that you need to be in the left lane if you're going to go straight.
Westbound Pine,
Yes.
Pine westbound.
Mhm.
We look at that signing.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you. And do we have any other staff? Does Chief Kuhn have anything for us this evening?
Save it for next time.
Okay, all right.
Madam President,
Yes,
we do have one brief announcement from the clerk's office, if we may.
yes.
So the clerk's office also serves as the communications assistant office for the mayor's office, the mayor is our public information officer. And so we've been working, Haley and I are the webmaster basically for our new website. So one of the items on our website that we wanted to get up and going, it took us a little bit to get it figured out, but it's up now. We have announced it on Facebook and also on the city website under news, and that's the subscription feature. And I'll have Haley just share her screen here really quick, and I'll show you what we're talking about. But so this is going to be just an option for members of the public to get onto our website and subscribe to receive notifications for news announcements, for when agendas are posted for city council or for other committees and commissions, and also some other opportunities on there. And I know we've also been talking just today about some other more urgent announcements for the public if they sign up for, say, emergency announcements that are citywide, those sorts of things. And so we're working with the chiefs on that. They've got some ideas, so we'll come back with more information on that. But just real quick, wanted to show you members of the council and the public where to sign up for subscriptions from our homepage. If you just click on or hover over Get Involved and then go all the way over to the left, you'll see a subscribe option. And if you click there, you'll get to that subscription portal. And then if you scroll down, you'll see a variety of alerts and notifications that you can sign up for. And so when you scroll down a little bit more, you'll see all the different committees and commissions, plus news and announcements, open house options, such as the Public Works Department is holding currently for the wastewater plant. So there are a couple of options, and Haley will toggle those for you just so she can show you what those do. So you can sign up for email. You do have to sign in and create an account in order to do that. We won't sign in right now, but if you hit that toggle button there, you can get email messages, or if you hit the other toggle, you can get text, or you can do both. So just encourage the public to go and sign up for those. It's a great way to get notifications directly from the city on news announcements and posting of agendas.
Great.
Thank you,
And
Madam Clerk.
Additionally, normally Cheryl would be here to give you an update on upcoming special events. And so we'll also just do that this evening as Cheryl's not in. And so the only one we have coming up right now is the K9 Keg Pull, which is slated for this coming Sunday, the 23rd. The event runs from 11 to 1, just a couple of hours, but Cedar Street from 2nd to 3rd will be closed from 8 a.m. until 3 p.m. on Sunday for that event. So just an announcement for the public on that.
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. And I assume staff is done at this point. So next on the list, public comment. We'll proceed with the public comment portion of the meeting. If you wish to speak and haven't yet completed a sign-up form, please do so and hand to a staff member at the back of the. If you would like to speak on any item included on this evening's agenda, now is your opportunity to do so. For purposes of a general public forum, you are also welcome to comment on any topic pertinent to the business of the city that is not included on the agenda. Those attending remotely who wish to speak may raise a hand on Zoom at this time. I would like to make everyone aware that the city does have a policy on public meeting decorum. The rules are posted just outside the chamber entry doors. In summary, I would ask that everyone please be pleasant and respectful, not make derogatory statements about others, including city staff, not be disorderly and disruptive, no calling out, clapping, or holding up of signs. Please note that council cannot take testimony on any planning-related matter outside of an official public hearing. Public comment time is for comments only, no questions or debate. You are welcome to contact the mayor during regular business hours if you have any questions or concerns. Again, this is your opportunity to speak on items listed on the consent calendar or under old or new business, or on an item of general nature relevant to business of the city. This is the only public comment time that will be offered this evening. When it is your turn to speak, please state your name and whether you reside in Sandpoint city limits. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes. And Madam Clerk, has anyone signed up to speak?
Yes, Madam President. Amelia Boyd.
Good evening, Ms. Boyd.
Madam President, it's been a while. So since it's been in the preliminary development stage, I would like you to reject charging city residents to park at City Beach in the proposed parking management plan. At the January 21st and February 4th Planning and Zoning meeting, Jason reported that the LWCF forbids or does not allow the city from not charging one group over another. That is a false and untrue statement. The LWCF states, and I quote, "Where there is no charge for residents but a fee charged to non-residents, non-residents cannot exceed fees charged for residents at comparable state or local facilities." Jason also shared results from the 2022 parking study wherein he states that 80% of those parking at City Beach are from non-residents. The common ideology from the mayor and staff is to have our out-of-towners incur the cost of using our facilities. The mayor also stated at the January 21st Planning and Zoning meeting, and I quote, "City Beach is sacred to the residents of Sandpoint and sacred to me." He also went on to say, "My number one focus is to put our residents first. Well, charging our city residents to pay to park at City Beach is not putting our residents first. The proposed fee schedules for non-residents, boat launch fees, and parking passes will more than make up enough revenue to not charge city residents at City Beach." Jason also stated at the February 4th Planning and Zoning meeting that city residents are already paying about $40 per head for parking in Sandpoint. So why should city residents contribute twice at City Beach? Our families should be able to enjoy a day at the beach without incurring an extra cost. City Beach is a gem cherished by all. Let's not stick it to them and actually put our residents first, as the mayor so aptly said. And since I have time, the public engagement portion of this, I have a problem with it only being so far at commission meetings, which are in the middle of the day and very hard for working folks to attend. And I'm very disappointed that there hasn't been any mention whatsoever of workshops or open houses. And I don't know if that's in the future. I just hope it is. I'm just a little reminder, when the election was over a year ago, a lot of us talked about workshops, public engagement, and I've yet to hear any of that opportunity for our working folks. And side note, I noticed that the Engage Sandpoint app is also not available. So that was another way of public engagement for us residents. Just wondering and curious about that, since nobody's been informed about it not being available. Anyway, 16 seconds left. Have a good evening.
Madam Clerk, do we have anyone else?
Yes, Madam President. Matt Deal.
Good evening.
Council, Matt Deal, Sandpoint resident. I also oversee the Safe Routes to School program for the school district. I want to speak in support of the LTAC Child Pedestrian Safety project that is on the agenda tonight. And also reminder to council and staff present that even with the best infrastructure, we still need to be plowing properly and enforcing shoveling on the sidewalks to keep things safe. So what's been done is great and continued progress is great too. Thanks.
Thank you.
Paige Belfry.
Good evening, counselors. My name is Paige Belfry. I'm a Sandpoint resident. I'm also an ISA certified arborist, and I own a tree care company in the city of Sandpoint. I'm here representing my professional opinion as an arborist tonight, and I would like to comment on Sandpoint's process for deciding to retain or remove trees in the city. I noticed that the downtown parking lot redevelopment project proposes to remove all of the existing mature trees. The current plan is incomplete and should address the following issues. In my opinion, as a professional, the cedar grove, spruce, and Douglas fir at the very least should be maintained and a tree protection zone enforced during construction. The roots of the mature trees on the neighboring property at the bank and all adjacent street trees should be protected by an additional tree protection zone. Permeable pavement options should be utilized where the trees could benefit. Trees should be given a maximum area for roots by designing groups of trees in fewer, larger tree wells rather than individual small tree wells, which I can tell you never benefits a tree you're trying to grow. Modular pavement support systems like one called Silva Cells, and I'm not selling that specifically product, but there are all kinds of products available to help reduce compaction for the roots of these trees and help with stormwater management for these projects. And we should be utilizing science for these type of technologies. I'm here to tell you that trees are not easy to replace. That's kind of a misconception. Young trees can be planted, of course, but most people don't understand that young, unestablished urban trees almost never thrive, and many have to be replaced again and again and again, which starts that clock over. Urban trees should be removed only when absolutely necessary, and I'm wondering, has that question been asked with this project? Is it absolutely necessary to remove these trees? Some consequences of removing mature trees. It sets a tone that trees and green infrastructure are not priorities in Sandpoint, which affects both residents and our visitors who come to see a beautiful city. We'll lose the benefits of cooling the urban heat island effect in the city. You'll see a difference of up to 30 degrees Fahrenheit of the surface of the pavement where you have shade from a tree versus no shade from a tree. We'll lose potentially stormwater deferral, physical and mental health benefits, and there'll be no usable shade for maybe 15 to 20 years after removing these trees. The proposal should be placed on hold until it's reevaluated to include retaining mature trees as a priority. Prior to its adoption, the site should be assessed and written recommendations made by a certified consulting arborist. These living assets and the benefits they bring to our community cannot be easily replaced, and certainly not in our lifetime. It would be a misstep to rush an incomplete proposal to approval tonight, as it has no professional input from a credentialed arborist and it can be improved. It would be especially fraught to rush into cutting down the city's mature trees so that we may have a parking lot ready in time for a single event such as Lost in the 50s.
Ms. Belfry, your time is up. I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up.
May I make one more sentence, or is that it?
I will allow you to make one more sentence.
Thank you. We have a choice to make that says a lot about our priorities. Voting to postpone this project until the above recommendations are explored will demonstrate your commitment to prioritize trees alongside our other goals to support a healthy community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jennifer Cox.
Jennifer Cox, Clark Fork. Thank you for letting me speaking, and I appreciate the comments shared by Mayor Grimm earlier this evening. And I can certainly say that while I agree with some of his comments, I still have concerns that I'd like to address. The last time I commented at this meeting, I questioned why Averill Hospitality was to pay a fee of only $400,000 to produce the parking it would create, when the City Code 9518 indicated that the fee should be approximately $1 million. Mayor Grimm stated that I'd misinterpreted the code. Based on a Freedom of Information request, we know that in November, Jason Welker, the city planning director, emailed resort representatives and indicated that per code, the resort should pay $950,000 in fees. Money that, in his words, would have allowed the city to undertake improvements to the adjacent public parking facilities at City Beach, implementation of a paid parking solution, and more. Mr. Welker later indicated in that email that based on a request by
Mrs. Cox, in our decorum, it asks you to not call out specific city employees.
Okay, thank you. Later in that email, it was indicated that there was an agreement with the resorts to only pay $400,000, that it would only pay $400,000 in parking fees. I believe that the codes have been misinterpreted by the individuals who have agreed to that lower payment. Per 9518, the city council must agree to parking in lieu fees, and I understand that none of you were consulted with that process. Furthermore, the resort's building plans seem to remain in flux as they improperly posted condos for sale at the resort without a conditional use permit. And I can tell you that the condos are not included in that assessment report. I've looked at it very closely. Why is Averill Hospitality so comfortable ignoring Sandpoint regulations? The good news is that because city codes seem to have been breached and no building permit has been granted, it seems that you all are not only enabled, but required to revisit previous agreements with Averill Hospitality. Please go back. Either ensure Averill Hospitality creates the parking needed to support its facilities year-round or find another developer. It's a treasured area. I'm sure you can find another developer. Until then, the people of Bonner County should fight against plans announced in January to charge community members to park in Sandpoint. Those plan fees are designed to improve a bad parking situation, which Averill Hospitality has now ensured upon the agreements that have been put in place will worsen under current plans. And I'd just like to add that having them do parking at the high school and other public areas that taxpayers are already paying to repair is not a good solution. Why wouldn't you have this developer pay to create the parking themselves? Why give them these reduction in fees? It really doesn't make sense. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Cox.
Madam President, I am not aware of anyone else who wishes to speak this evening during public comments. And there are no hands raised on Zoom.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. We will move on to the consent calendar. For the record, the total amount of bills is $1,026,989.52 for regular payables. Council, do you have any questions or are there any items you wish to remove from the consent calendar? No? Okay. Then I will call for a vote to approve those. Oh, no, I got to go through the whole consent calendar, don't I?
But directly under that box there was
Okay.
the entertain a motion.
Oh, there we go. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar. I knew it was there somewhere.
So moved. Second.
Okay, this will be a roll call vote.
Madam President, who was that second? I'm sorry.
Kyle,
Thanks.
Councilman Schreiber, I believe.
No.
That was yours. You were.
Joel. Seconded by Aspiro.
Oh, seconded by Joel. Okay.
Thank you. Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Schreiber,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow,
Yes.
Counselor Duquette,
Yes.
Counselor Howard.
Yes.
Madam President, motion passes.
Thank you. We'll move on to old business, which will be short because we have none. And then we will move on to new business. We will review the fiscal year 2025 first quarter financial report. At this time, I will yield the floor to Finance Director Sarah Linz.
Good evening. I wanted to present the first quarter fiscal year 25 report and also do something new tonight that we haven't done in the past. So we're going to also do a capital improvement update that's going to also talk about where we're at the first quarter of those projects. To remind you of what the fiscal year 25 budget consists of, it is $50,499,050. Of that amount, the CIP projects that we'll be talking about tonight is 46% of that amount. A little over $23 million of our budget is capital projects. And 23% of our budget is personnel related. 6.6% of that is transfers from one fund to another, and the remaining amount is operational costs. I wanted to show on our website where you can go find this information at your fingertips and drill down into it at a much depth or more in-depth if you want to at your own leisure. Also, this is a great place to direct residents to go if they want to see more about our budgets and our actual numbers, our budget to actuals. All of our projects are also out there as well. So if you go into underneath the departments and then underneath financial transparency, this opens up our financial transparency center that it basically houses all the financial information that we have out there for the public. This is updated quarterly. Usually I'm updating the checkbook over here monthly or bi-monthly, depending on when I get to it. But over here under the overview, you can see major things that have come out. The first quarter report, which we'll be looking at tonight, the adopted budget from 25, you can dig into that whole budget book there. And then last year's to 24. And then underneath the different tabs, you have all the different fiscal years you can look at. You can look at general funds. You can look at all the different funds under here. So you can really drill into whatever you're wanting to look at. Expenditures are the same way. Projects, which we'll be looking at tonight as well. This will actually list out our projects and talk about them. You can get much more in depth of where they're at, and where the progress is at on them. We also have completed projects and active projects on here. Last but not least, in this transparency site is our checkbook. And in here, I wanted to point out, and I know there's questions sometimes that I see posted on Facebook or somewhere on social media about stuff. This is an easy way to go look at every check that's been made out of the city. You can download the whole checkbook and see every check that's written. So at your leisure again. So that's just an overview of the transparency site. I'm going to go back over to the overview over here and click into our interactive financial report. And this is set up similarly to our budget for ease of, for people to ease of looking at things and just the ease of just the setup of things. So you have, I'm not going to go through this in depth by any means. The overview, you do have that attached to our agenda tonight. And typically the first quarter of actually the first and second quarter, we don't have a lot of project stuff going on. So there's low budget to actuals. A lot of our revenues actually come in January. All of our property taxes and our sharing from the state comes in January. So our first quarter revenues are low from what you would expect of 25%. However, that's normal. That happens every year. So when you look at a year over year, that's very typical where we're at budget to actual. The only one I did want to point out tonight is just in our park improvement fund, which we'll be talking about those projects in depth tonight. That one is at the end of when we budget for one fiscal year, we're always having to, especially if a project goes over multi-years, we're having to predict and make an estimate of how much we think is going to be in the next fiscal year. So what that leads to is that I'm just going to let's say we have a project that's $1 million and we know it's going to start in June and run through June. When we're making that estimate, we have to say on the end of 9/30, how much we estimate is going to be done by that time. Sometimes that's hard because we don't actually know. And a lot of times we don't get that 100% right. Actually, a lot of times we don't get that 100% right. So every once in a while you'll come across a project that might have not enough budget in the budget here. However, the project in a whole is not over budget. We do have that with 2 projects this year, so we may have to open up the budget, but we'll make that decision as we get closer to the end of the fiscal year. I would say probably in August is probably if we see it, we would need to do it. But we have to just kind of weigh that to see. That wouldn't be allowing any more money to be spent on those projects. All that would be doing is allowing the budget to per Idaho code to be in compliance with Idaho code. I just want to throw that out there because sometimes it is confusing you think you're to have that budget come back and be open. We have not had to do that since I've been here in 7 years. So it's very unusual to have that happen, but every once in a while that does happen. All right. So going back to the first quarter report, you can see all the funds. I'm not going to go into depth of what all these different items are, but they all have I'm going to open up general fund. All of these have descriptions at the top of them of what they are, what they're used for. And so again, you can drill into here and see what they are. The funding sources here, property taxes, and the big ticket items here for funding sources are departments and divisions. Again, that's set up in the same way that our budget's set up. And then our capital improvements is what we're gonna get into tonight and more talk in depth. Under the capital improvements, this is again set up the same way as a budget. It goes through all of our projects here in depth. And I'm going to open up, this is the new thing that we have added in here for you guys to see. All right, so this is a report that's similar to the quarterly report that just lists out each of the CIP projects and then also the quarterly actuals to date. And what you're able to do here is easily able to click on this and it brings you back to the project. And I'm just gonna do one so you can see that. Over here under the transparency site, and you can actually go back and you can see where this at, and it shows pictures and whatnot. So I'm going to, have both Holly and Jason up here to help us go through the projects and then give an update on where they're at. So I will turn it over to Holly.
All right, give me 1 second to share my screen.
Let me stop sharing, hold on.
Maybe more than a second. For Public Works, we have many projects going on. So as Sarah kind of went over, this is our transparency page, and you have all sorts of options for projects. All projects, proposed projects, active and completed. So we try to keep up, and anytime we complete a project, you still have access to that material and you can see what happened on that project. But we can focus tonight on active projects. So Bridge Street Bridge for one, so we can start with that project here. It's on our map. So there's two ways to navigate this. There's a column on the left here, which has all the projects identified. And then if you kind of know the area of the project, but maybe not the name, you can zoom in and you can also click on you can find projects by the map too. So it's pretty interactive. It's pretty cool. But to use Bridge Street Bridge Rehab as an example, we keep this page updated with project background information so that the scope of the project is very clear, the history is there, schedule and budget. So this goes over background on the bridge, why it's being repaired, some current pictures of the work that's underway, and the location of the project, and a little timeline. So if there's any feedback on information that you'd want on this transparency page, we're open to hear it, but this is kind of the basic layout. And you can get construction updates on here as well, to make sure that you're up to speed on the project. So for this project in particular, as the report says, this was design at that point. We had 60,000 budgeted for design. In actual, the design costs were 64,500. And now after this next quarter is when the construction started. So that's kind of the layout for our projects. Are there any questions about the Public Works projects, or I can continue to run through these, whatever is most helpful for council and what they're running for an update.
Well, if you just want to continue and run through.
Okay. That's Bridge Street Bridge. It's in construction right now. So our next quarter report, you'll have construction dollars, but for that fiscal year 24, that was the final. Downtown Phase 3 revitalization, no money's been spent to date on that design yet. The road reconstruction project, we did have a little bit of movement there. We had a 4th Avenue was paved. So on our road sealing project, that's this project here. Let's see what's in there. This is our ongoing maintenance project that we have going on in town. So our goal is to do some type of an overlay on Pine Street this year between Pine and Boyer. This is our overlay project. So at the end of the First Street pavement rehab project, we had a contractor with some availability, and they were able to pop over to Fourth Avenue and do some overlay work on Fourth Ave, just south of Pine for 2 blocks. That was a really poor shape condition of a road, and we were able to use that contractor to move that rehab forward in addition to First Street. So that road reconstruction project is First Street with a little bit of Fourth Avenue paved in there for the $500,000. So on ClearGov, where you'd find that First Street project is under completed projects. Here's the final First Street completed. Some information that was available during construction. Short-term east-west connector, that is the Pine Signal project. That was 67% at the end of the fiscal year. That project did continue on past September, so there are full project costs there. So under active projects, no. It's completed, that's where it is. All sorts of background information on the project. And here's our budget. We had 500,000 budgeted for the project in total. And originally, so we're right there on budget. Well, under budget. We spent $335,000. The other project I want to highlight on here is the Boyer water main. This project was also completed last summer. Pictures of the old coal tar line steel main that was removed from the system, the water main. Some information for the public during construction, our construction schedule and construction complete. This project was completed on time. We did not budget for the construction this year. We got ahead and we had some of the design, and we had some funding that we were able to move that project forward. So we were able to get design and construction done this year. So we were, for project budget, we went over budget because we were able to move construction forward and get it done within that fiscal year. But our bottom line for all of our water projects is still within budget. We knew that our Sand Creek water treatment repair project, we put that out to bid and we did not get good bids. And so we kind of stepped back and we were revamping that. So we were able to move that Sand Creek treatment rehab dollars around so that we could move this water main project forward. So just some movement of our water funds within that fund. Those are the projects that I had highlighted, what we completed last year. Again, it's the Bridge Street Bridge that we're constructing now, our road rehab on Fur, the east-west connector, which is the Pine and Fifth Signal, and our Boyer water main project. Any questions from Public Works?
Madam President?
Counselor Sharp?
Yeah, I have a question, and this, I'm not sure, this might be for Sarah. Looking in the staff report, at the very top of the second page, it says water and wastewater capital outlay expenditures are at 1.94% and 95.35%.
That
With,
percent's wrong.
what's that?
That percent is wrong.
Okay, because I
Yes.
couldn't find it in the table, and so I just wanted to make sure we weren't hadn't already spent all of our wastewater capital outlay, since we know we have some big projects coming up.
Yeah, no, that should be 5.35%.
Oh, okay.
That's on, yeah,
Okay, perfect.
sorry.
No worries. And then the other project that I saw on here that I just wanted a quick question about was the sidewalk. Sidewalk and bike path projects, and that's, it looks like that's gonna be Fourth Street.
Fourth Street is the project that we have for next fiscal year. Yes.
Okay, has, the bike ped committee had a chance to weigh in on that?
So the budget was adopted prior to okay, so that project was identified in our budgeting efforts. By way into design, or what type of, we haven't started design, so there's been no design yet for them to weigh in on. Are you weighing in on like the project selection and where we're doing the project, or?
Yeah, exactly. I just walked Fourth Street recently, and it had a nice usable sidewalk the entire length. But I noticed that once you turn onto Idaho and then Third, so as to access the city-owned property at Third Ave Pier, there's no sidewalk whatsoever. So it just seemed to me that there are other opportunities other than redoing a section of sidewalk that is already usable.
So for our sidewalk projects, the way that we've kind of in our capital budgeting process, the local option tax that voters voted on, there were 7 projects that went in alignment with that vote, and Fourth Avenue was one of them. So we've got the projects on your screen are the remaining projects that we have committed to the city that we would complete, committed to the public that we would complete with that local option tax and funding. So we've been able to complete some of those projects. The remaining projects are Oak Street, Ellis Senior, and Fourth Avenue. And the way we program which sidewalks we attempt next or try to work on next is based on the funding that comes in that year. You kind of nailed it when you said Fourth Avenue is not in bad shape. This year we have a lot of competing projects for that sidewalk budget. So Fourth Avenue is something that we can, with that existing budget, we're able to get that project done. It's kind of lower hanging fruit, and we'll also balance the division sidewalk project that's on the agenda tonight and some design efforts for some Boyer infill. So how these projects were selected is based on that original local option tax effort.
So you're saying that the language of the ballot question identified these specific projects and therefore it cannot be changed?
Oh, I don't know about the legalities of the ballot language and that, but when we went out for that bond, or sorry, for that tax, the projects were identified. So I don't know if there was a legal commitment, but I could get back to you on what that commitment looks like. There's a whole page on our ClearGov about what those projects were, and I can give you an update on what's been done in the past, but that's kind of the efforts to date that I'm aware of. I can get back to you with more information though.
Perfect, thanks.
Madam President, this question might be for Holly or Sarah. The Great Northern Road Corridor improvements, we've got $4.9 million. Wasn't that our portion that Sandpoint was going to kick in for the grant that we did not receive? Is that correct? And then how are we able to use that money? Does that have to stay over there on the Great Northern side?
So that's not all our money. That a lot of that is SURA money
Okay.
and grant money. So it isn't any of the city per se money. It's good. It would all funded by other sources.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I can,
So
if
let's
I'm,
go back to the original source then.
Correct. And we didn't get the grant. We don't have the money to do that.
Gotcha.
Now SURA, we still have money in SURA, and I think that's all being discussed behind the scenes and probably with SURA and more to come on that, I believe.
and Councilman Dick, I can give you a brief update on that. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, so just last week, Holly and Eric's been managing the engineering of that Great Northern project. We met last week to see what we could salvage. We've spent roughly between $600,000 and $700,000 on that design for Great Northern. Obviously, without the railroad federal grant, we have no capacity to even dream about implementing that project. So we went back through and I asked staff to identify of that project, what can we salvage or glean related to stormwater? In my mind, the stormwater deficiencies on the west side of the airport are our greatest barrier to further investment in places like Silver Wings or the Cox property or some of the DeHare property, as well as further north. So they are going to get back to me and see what can we do of the design that we have, what can we apply to stormwater. Any remaining dollars, obviously, I'll bring to the council and look at what makes the most sense. And then, of course, the Sura Northern District had approximately a $6 million match for that grant. And we met with Chairman Paul to discuss what other options could be looked at for reallocating that $6 million if we're not going to do Great Northern Road, including potential partnership on the railroad right-of-way north of Larch and other projects along Boyer, Mountain View, and Baldy. So we'll be getting back to you probably in about another month and a half on recommendations for how we reallocate those dollars that had been committed to the Great Northern Project.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Go ahead and continue, Ms. Ellis. There was more.
Oh, that's all I had. I did just, as we were talking about sidewalk, this is the budgeted item for sidewalk, and it does identify Fourth Avenue, so it was just identified with our budgeting process. But if there's any other questions for Public Works, I'll hand it over to Jason to CPD.
Sure. Share.
And council members, this was both the intent of just a demonstration. That initial sheet really shows you where we are. By all means, if you're not enjoying this or it's not helpful, or if you have very specific questions, feel free to let staff know, and we can either drill into each one or just get a sense of where we're at. But your pleasure.
Give us a quick overview, Jason, and
All
we'll
right,
see where
yeah.
we get.
We obviously CPD department, our capital projects are all parks related. We don't really have a budget for other things capital related, unfortunately. Well, thankfully, I would say. So on the parks front, we have a few capital projects to update you on tonight. We'll start with the big one, the sports center, the James E. Russell Sports Center. The final, I guess not final, because there's still interest being earned on some of this. We are 90, I believe Maeve reported us at 99% complete. 99% complete is where we are. That's from the construction standpoint. In other words, the building's done. It's been opened for 2 months now. The remaining items are punch list items. They are we might end up moving a HVAC unit a few feet to prevent freezing of the condensate that's coming out of it. We've got some signage we're still finalizing. Court numbers have not been applied to the vinyl backstop curtains yet. Very, very small items that we're still wrapping up with the sports center. The landscaping is the one remaining kind of larger item. As you know, the snow hit in early November this year. Before we could get the landscaping done, the landscaping firm determined that it would be best to come back in the spring when the ground is thawed and complete the planting of the trees and the completion of the landscaping around the building. So the building's complete, 99%. The landscaping will be completed. June 15th is our extended deadline with Gino and with the subcontractors to complete the landscaping on that project. There's project pages for the Traverse Park improvements available on ClearGov under projects. The information on these pages is also replicated in your staff reports, so there's no real reason to choose one over the other. So I'll leave this one up for now. The skate park expansion was completed entirely in fiscal year. Well, I guess it was completed in October when the lights were finally installed. So there was a little bit of that that carried over into the current fiscal year. You can see the final cost of that and where the funds for the skate park came from. The bicycle skills course was completed in summer last year. That was an entirely partner-funded project. The Ponderay Peddlers did the entire project. Zero parks improvement funds were allocated towards that project. We love partner projects like that. And then the inclusive playground and splash pad is at, I believe Maeve reports it at 84% complete right now. The remaining items at the playground are the installation of the splash pad features, which will happen in the spring. We have a couple of play features, mushroom steppers, I believe they're called, that are in our park shop waiting to be installed. We have benches that have been procured and actually on site. They're in the shop as well from the Kalispell tribe. I think 5 or 6 steel benches, custom made with the Sandpoint logo on them. They look fantastic. We have a barbecue pit. We have a few items like that that still need to be installed. But the playground is substantially complete. It's open for play. It's been getting a lot of traffic, and the landscaping still needs to be completed for the playground as well. The funding for that, as you know, came from the Land Water Conservation Fund with City Parks Capital Improvement Funds, and actually some of the parks development impact fee funds were allocated towards that when that was budgeted 2 or 3 years ago. So all of these projects are approaching completion. Back to this staff report, we have a couple other projects ongoing this year. One is the Memorial Grandstands HVAC replacement. Unfortunately, when the Memorial Grandstands were completed in 2017, 2016, the HVAC system that was installed at that time was not adequate for the amount of space it's trying to heat, and we've had to winterize large portions of that building in the winter. In fact, as early as October, which is during football season, we've had pipes freeze in there. So we are working with an engineer right now who is under contract to do a full design of a new upgraded HVAC system, and I believe there's $84,000 in the budget this year for the replacement of that HVAC system, which would include engineering and construction of the upgraded, much more robust system. So that project is underway right now. And then we are in final design of the, and I assume this will come to you at an upcoming meeting before we go out to bid, the final design for the outdoor tennis court resurfacing project and landscaping of the pedestrian pathway at the south end of the tennis courts. So this is what I'm calling the final phase, the finishing touches of the Traverse Park renovation project. For now, the final phase for now, because our Parks Master Plan still envisions additional skate park expansion and other work at the park. But the final phase that will be completed this June is basically repairing those outdoor tennis courts. As you've probably seen, there's quite a crater in the middle of the southern 2 courts. So the plan is to excavate out approximately a 10-foot wide north to south trench, backfill it, repave the southern tennis court, and then repaint both the southern and the northern tennis courts. Those northern tennis courts are in fine shape, but they can use a fresh coat of paint. That same design is going to include about an 8-foot, we could call it a vegetative buffer between the tennis courts and the skate park. That leaves us with an 8-foot asphalt path between the landscaping and the skate park. The park's maintenance crew will self-perform some landscaping and improvements around the skate park itself, which means we're not going to have to go out to bid for that. We're going to use our own guys. We're going to use a mix of Parks Capital Improvement Funds and obviously the park's maintenance budget to do some tree plantings, some shrubs. The skaters have requested some benches in the shade around the skate park. And we're going to do community outreach with the skaters in the next month or so to determine what we'll do on that east side of the skate park around where the light posts are. So if you've seen the skate park lately, you know that there's still kind of a graded but unfinished stretch of dirt between the concrete and the east property line. Originally, there was envisioned an asphalt path there, but we started to hear some feedback from the skaters that they might prefer that not to be part of the asphalt path to keep pedestrians from, walking too close to where skateboards or bikes might be flung around and create hazards. So we're going to meet with the skaters in the next couple months to get some input from them on what their vision for that east side of the skate park is. It might end up being a landscaped area with some benches in the shade. We're looking at possible shade awnings over there as well. One of the biggest requests from skaters is more shade at the skate park. When it reaches 90 degrees and above, it becomes extremely hot down there. So looking for ways to implement shade there at a low cost, something we can self-perform that doesn't require a massive engineering contract and going out to bid or anything. There's a lot of simple things we can do. So that's kind of it. The team is, as you know, we've got 2 grants submitted, but the matching funds for those grants are going to come from the next year's Parks Capital Improvement budget. That was the recreational vehicle grant and the Waterways Improvement Fund grant to do improvements to the parking lot and the RV park at City Beach. But those are not this year's budget. Those would be budgeted in the next couple months as we work on the fiscal year 25 budget or 26 budget. Sorry.
Thank you, Director Welker. And next, we will consider a resolution approving an agreement with the local highway tech council accepting children pedestrian safety program grant funding for Phase 2 of Division Avenue Corridor and Safety Improvement Project. And
Madam President?
again,
I believe we're on item 4.
Cedar Street.
I skipped item 4, excuse me. All right, I take all the back. Preliminary design for Cedar Street reconstruction project. And again, Holly gets the floor yielded.
Thank you. 1 second while I share my screen. Okay, an update for the Cedar Street project. Would it be okay if we did a break? I'm sorry, I have to use the restroom.
Absolutely. We will take a 5-minute break and it is 6:55. Okay, we start the meeting again at 7 p.m. and yield the floor to Ms. and the Cedar Street reconstruction project.
Thank you, Council President. Cedar Street construction project, this is just an update to council tonight where we've been brought this to you to council. It was a concept and we've progressed design to 60%. We have the consultant has 75% on their plans, but intermittent design either way. So just a background on the project. To the right is a picture of Cedar Street. It's in poor condition and we plan to repave it between Division and Lincoln. This is the concept that you saw. We have taken this concept and brought it into design with a new water main and 6-foot sidewalk on both sides of the street, a planter strip to serve for stormwater and snow storage, and 2 12-foot sharrows. Here is that concept in a design phase. So in red is new asphalt, yellow is new sidewalk, and green is new stormwater treatment. Dark blue is a new water main, and the light cyan yellow is new storm drain improvements. Going back to our concept, we were able to pick up this concept and put it into design. Are there any questions from council on the concept itself? This is kind of a, we can kind of jump back and forth between our plan view and our concept view. I don't know what's most helpful, but on this concept, are there any questions about any of the elements that you'd like clarity on or?
Madam President?
Counselor Howard?
Hi, a quick question. Can you just explain the shared vehicular and bicycle lanes, how they work in practicality? And why we wouldn't have separate bicycle lanes?
So for this project, our challenge is the existing right-of-way is narrow. It's a collector street. So ideally, we'd have a wider area so we could have separated bike lanes. In this case, that bike lane is competing space with the planter strip. The road width needs to accommodate traffic. Sidewalks accommodates pedestrians. But for bike lanes to be added, that would mean that planter strip would be removed. So that 6 to 8 foot wide planter strip would be eliminated and we would no longer have snow storage. So if you put your bike lane right here, you would take out
What's more important, safety or that buffer strip?
So this project seeks to balance multiple users of this road. So we have vehicular traffic, sometimes trucks, pedestrian traffic, and bicycle traffic. The Sharrow concept is an attempt to balance all of those needs. We could look at other alternatives, but in this case, the planter strip serves multiple purposes: stormwater treatment. If we didn't have that planter strip, our stormwater would not have treatment. And then it also serves for snow storage so that when our plows plow Cedar Street, the snow has a place to go and it doesn't go directly on the sidewalk.
And my real question is, and you articulated it, there's all kinds of vehicular traffic that's using that street. And who has the right of way? If there's a bicyclist on there going 8 miles an hour,
So the Sharrow is to remind drivers that bicyclists have the right of way. So the Sharrow is painted on the road to encourage bicycles to bike in the middle of the lane and also to prevent drivers from trying to pass them because the bicyclist does have the right of way.
so all traffic will go with the speed of the bicycle.
Yes,
Interesting.
that's the Sharrow concept. The reason I kind of backed up on this concept is that this is the basis for our design. So we, again, we're challenged by the minimal right of way. We have competing interests of vehicular drivers, pedestrians, bicyclists. We do have a resolution in a city resolution that requires sidewalk and it requires pedestrian and bicyclist accommodations for any reconstruction of a project. So when we looked to Cedar Street and identified that the pavement was in poor condition, we identified that it needs to accommodate and provide for pedestrian and bicycle users. So we also have a city code that or not a city code, it's a standard detail that was adopted by council that requires that collector roads have 6-foot sidewalks on both sides of the street. So that helped us identify that for this project, our pedestrian accommodation was a 6-foot sidewalk. Then we look to bicycle considerations. So if we were to put in dedicated bike lanes here, you would lose the planter strip. So the Sharrow is truly a balance because we're limited in right of way.
So one more question, and just help me. Who makes that balanced decision that we're gonna have bicycles and cars interacting versus this planter strip? Who makes that decision?
Us, you. So this is kind of why I paused on this concept. Council. Why I paused on this concept is that this is, again, this is the basis of our design. We do not have very clear cross-section standards in our code. I have an image here. Oh. This cross-section, this is a very technical looking street section of the prettier cartoon below. This is from the UATP, which is the Urban Area Transportation Plan from 2009. That's since been updated, but that's full of typical street sections. And we use that as a guiding document when we're selecting what a street should look like. And so this was our guidance for this project. You've got a planter strip, 2 vehicular lanes, and sidewalk. So we've got a standard document, the urban area transportation form filled with typical street sections, and then we have our codes. None of it is super clear.
I'll just, my personal opinion, I'm not a fan of that cross section. I ride the streets of Sandpoint all over. I can tell you, I do not like the shared bicycle car path. I don't feel safe on it. And so for me, in my thoughts, I would much rather put pedestrian bicycle safety over the planter strip. Just the way I view the world, not saying the rest of the counselors do, but anytime you mix bikes and cars, bad things can happen.
Can I just add, the appropriate way, Ms. Holly was kind of alluding to, is to have those typical sections adopted in engineering standards. And we are in the middle of a project right now to provide standard details for all, not just those cross sections, but sidewalks and curbs, which I think I've mentioned a couple of times. And one of them is going to be those typical sections, and that our plan is that has heavy input from city council before they get adopted. So we can use those as guidance adopted by council, and then the answer is we use those to design these street projects in the future. We're just not there yet, so.
That makes a lot of sense. Thank you.
Council President, can I just ask Holly, can you maybe just step back a little bit, talk about intended timeline, what impacts changes to this typical section would have on that timeline, and sort of where you see options for the council to guide you from this point forward?
So we're in the middle, we're in design, we're wrapping up design. Our hope is to go out to bid this spring and start construction this summer. We have a lot of hurdles to get over to get to that point, wrapping up design, more public outreach efforts. We have some budget challenges on this project that we need to overcome, but for construction this summer, to meet that, it's an aggressive schedule. So ideally, we would, again, be out to bid this spring, so we could have a July, September construction window.
If I may, to make a statement, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee has done a lot of work on this. They've been on site. Various options were discussed about different size sidewalks on one side compared to another side. And this went through that committee, and they decided this was the best option. There are no ordinances in this part of town that restrict you from riding your bicycle on the sidewalk. So smaller children or people who aren't going to run at the speed of cars could choose to use the 6-foot sidewalk for their bicycles, while those people who are more able or riding electric bicycles could ride where the share rails are. By making the lanes narrower in this way, it actually is a traffic calming and slowing. Out there in all the documents, after having done this for a long time. So I'm going to ask Holly to continue through her presentation, and then we can kind of save our discussion for when she's finished and move from there.
Thank you, Councilor President. It's an update, so I do appreciate the feedback. Back to this graphic, our intention was to try to get from Lincoln to Division with these improvements. We have some budgeting hiccups. Our preliminary cost estimate came in around 3 million. We have 1.9 million estimated. So we took out, considering taking out the block between Division and Monroe, that asphalt is in decent shape. And those asphalt improvements and the intersection improvements at Division could also take place at the time of the Division reconstruction project. So we're trying to evaluate, dig into our design and get our budget in better alignment with get our project in better alignment with our budget. So with the full build out from Lincoln to Division, it was around 3 million. Taking out this block of improvements, full improvements, gets us down to 2.3 million. So we're much closer to getting within budget, but there's more work to do. So just an update that we're likely going to cut out one block of improvements between Monroe and Division. Sidewalk, however, is intended to continue on that north side.
And Madam President, Holly and Council, I just add that one of the other constraints we're facing, if you're familiar with the site, this west side runs along some of Vista property. Stormwater becomes an issue here, and the solution to stormwater, and Holly, stop me if you're about to talk about this, but the solution to stormwater is to bring it all the way down to Lincoln and then dig up Lincoln and put a stormwater pipe in and bring it down to Pine, because there's no stormwater pipe in Lincoln right now. We have had discussions with Avista, that open field next to the new apartments there. That's where the historic sheet flow of stormwater has occurred to date, and we are trying to see if they would be friendly to a demonstration project of stormwater detention there that could serve as an educational sort of demonstration and potentially alleviate the need to dig up Lincoln, which would be further cost savings. So we are in active discussions with Avista about how we could further reduce the cost of stormwater associated with this road improvement.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, stormwater is a bit of an unknown right now, and there's potential cost savings with that alternative alignment. And we'll get into what our next steps are, and stormwater is a big next step. But from just working from east to west, we'll have new sidewalk on both sides of the street, a new planter strip, which will provide for stormwater treatment, which we do not currently have today. Not only stormwater treatment, but it'll slow the flow of the water, so it won't overburden our stormwater system. New asphalt on the street. These intersections have a 15-foot curb radius on the local streets, and then on the arterial connections with Lincoln and Division have, well, I guess just Lincoln provided funding, 30-foot. The water main is going to be replaced between Lincoln and Monroe. Currently, it's not under the road, and it's going to be relocated under the road. It helps protect the water main. It's also currently a 6-inch, and we'll be upsizing it to be 8 inches. The stormwater, as the mayor described, is very informal right now. A lot of the stormwater from the north flows, sheet flows, as the mayor described, to Cedar Street, and then it has found many ways to find its way south through backyards, and there are a lot of flooding issues. We seek to resolve that in this project by collecting the stormwater on Cedar and putting it in a pipe. The question is, where do we then route that stormwater? Division has a stormwater network, and unfortunately, it's overburdened. So if we were to try to take all of the stormwater and get it to Division, it would overload our Division stormwater pipe. So we have to find an alternative. From a grade perspective, going west makes the most sense because it's downhill. So we can take all the water, route it west, and then the alternatives that we're looking at is down Lincoln in our right of way with a new stormwater main. That is part of that $2.3 million budget that I spoke to earlier. And the other alternative would be working with Avista to get an easement down their property to install a stormwater main. The other thing I'll mention on the stormwater is what that might look like. It will be a grass area, so that green stormwater treatment area. All the stormwater coming from Cedar will have an opportunity to have treatment hitting a grass swale area. We're not looking at anything more complex than that right now. We don't have an MS4 permit. We're not sure what our treatment requirements might be in the future. So this would accommodate potentially a future treatment requirement. But for now, we would have a grass swale treatment with minimal maintenance requirements by the adjacent property owner. So something to, we're targeting stormwater, something easy for the adjacent property to maintain, and snow storage in that green area.
Counselors, Eric Bush, Project Manager, City Forester. I just wanted to jump in on this section here. What Holly is referring to in the kind of depression area, the stormwater treatment area, we're working on a kind of specialized seed mix that we've tried a few different iterations of throughout town. One most recently was on the Division project that was completed last summer or in 2023. And this is going to be kind of a new iteration of that. It's a little bit of trial and error, but we've got a pretty good mixture that we've figured out over a few different projects. And it's intended to be low maintenance or no maintenance, meaning homeowners and adjacent property owners can mow that every week if they want to, or they can mow it once a year, or they can mow it not at all. And the seed mixture, the materials that will be in it, the plants that will grow, will not look unmanicured or anything to that effect. So it's in service of trying to reduce maintenance on the right of way while also adding stormwater treatment and potentially expanding that in the future.
The only other thing I wanted to highlight on here, and trying to be cost effective in our design is we are not replacing sidewalk. So there's some sidewalk that's in decent shape and we seek to retain it. So there's in gray here, there's a couple call outs to sidewalk that we do not seek to replace. We'll just maintain it. Same as the frontage improvements on these new, this multifamily complex has some nice landscaping out here. We intend to save that and keep that and not replace it. And I'm trying to be in the best use of these funds for this project. So our next steps on this project, we are needing to finalize our stormwater. So how are we conveying stormwater from Cedar Street to Pine Street? We have alternatives. We need to select one. We'll also continue efforts to reduce budget. We plan to have a final design open house this spring prior to or with the project going to or prior to bid. This project has been in front of PED and Ped Bike Committee and the Forestry Committee. Both committees and commissions walked the project with the plans in hand. They'll have an opportunity to do the same with the final design. This will also go to council request for approval of the final design and request to bid the project in the spring, looking at summer construction. We're looking at potentially phasing this project because of funding constraints and construction constraints, but today the goal is to get it done this summer. And again, what we have budgeted is 1.9 million. And that is the presentation I have. Are there any questions on the Cedar Street project?
Madam President,
Counselor Duquette, yes.
I have several comments. I think at one point we had talked about smaller than 12-foot travel lanes. I know that doesn't help you with the bike riding, but that would narrow what needs to be paved. I think Pine Street, as I asked you today, is 2 12-foot. They go crazy fast on Pine Street. I just hate to see that. And when I've talked to people on the street about that section, they think it's going to be a speedway with the new pavement and that size. That's just a comment I'm sharing. I am not an engineer. A final design public comment time. I think final design, I know you've got some questions people answered. You surveyed some people or people were surveyed. But if we do a final design open house, people feel like they didn't have any input. I'm just wondering if we would have something in between that time.
Oh, to clarify, we did have a preliminary open house in November, and I didn't highlight this in my presentation. The comments from the open house were in your council
Is that
packet.
where those comments came
So
from?
we did hold an open house. We did get many comments. We've done door knocking and talked to the residents who live in the neighborhood. I've spoken to most people who live in that area. So they're aware of this project. So the final design open house is really going to be targeted at what does construction look like to prepare residents on what that construction is going to look like versus the preliminary design. It has a little more of a workshop feel and opportunity for more engagement.
Okay, I have a couple questions on, do we need sidewalks on both sides? Is one thought I had.
We have a standard detail that was adopted by city code. It's our sidewalk detail, and one of the items on there is that for collector roads, 6-foot sidewalks on both sides of the street is required. And that's why we have the concept to put sidewalk on both sides of the street.
Okay, I guess my other issue, of course, is the trees, the tree removal. There's what I call heritage trees there, that maple that's slated to go, that the person whose property it's on, it's not on one of your slides, but it was in the packet. She said it would break her heart to see that go. Wondering if there is some way we could save that tree and do a little creative sidewalking if you're going to put sidewalk on both sides. That aspen grove is lovely. I mean, those things are calming. That to me is a heritage tree. In our comp plan, we want to save them. Do you have any way that you can think of going around some of those trees. That and the willow, I'll just throw this out at the same time, the willow on the corner of Willow Drive. The way that corner is, the way the corner is on that, do you think it needs to be prepared that way so that it's going to cut some of the roots, it looked like, on that one willow tree? Those aren't these pictures here, but those are questions that I had. Can that be fixed so that we don't hurt the roots on the willow tree on Willow Drive corner where there was going to be a crosswalk? And is there some creative way we can make this heritage trees stay and maybe keep some of the forest there? One of the comments was they like the trees on that street. That is a calming. It is in our comp plan to try to keep urban forests. I know people say that's an old tree, but yeah, it's old, it's beautiful, it's still healthy. So those are my concerns, I guess, at this point with the design. Like I said, not being an engineer, but trying to make it a good project.
I can, to speak to this on the left-hand side, that's a silver maple. Our plans have the curb and gutter going right through, not the middle of it, but right at the edge of the tree here is where the proposed curb is to come in. Because of our right-of-way, our restrictive right-of-way, there is not enough room that we could shift the road to move the road away from this tree. We have a lot of flexibility when we do sidewalk projects to save trees. We can move the sidewalk around the tree. We can ramp the sidewalk above the tree. We don't have that opportunity with roads. I have another picture here on this slide just to prepare everyone for a road reconstruction and what that looks like. About 2 feet below the top of asphalt today is going to be disturbed. The purpose of this picture here is to illustrate how impactful that excavation is going to be in the roadway. We don't have enough space to shift our road far enough to not impact the roots of this tree. So if we were to go in and excavate adjacent to this tree, it's very, the potential that this tree becomes a hazard in the future and is damaged is quite probable. The other challenge that we have is in a road profile, you can't have organic material. So you can't have roots in your road profile. You have to have rock to ensure durability and drainage. So those roots would have to be cut out. So the opportunities to save this particular tree are just not available that we've seen to date.
Madam President.
Go ahead.
I would just say, Holly, I do have numerous other comments and feedback, and just being mindful of time, I will send you a separate email and just voice my opinions and thoughts on that. So in the next week or so, I'll communicate with you.
Councilor Duquette, regarding the willow on the corner of Willow Drive, I've inspected that tree, well, not inspected the tree, looked at the location of that particular tree. And I'm confident that that tree can be protected during construction and won't have health implications in the long term because of it. It's far enough away from that corner intersection where we should be able to work around it during construction.
Okay, looked like the line that was drawn on there was pretty close.
It's a large tree. It will require some protection during construction, but it's not, right along the curb line, for example, where it would be quite a bit more challenging.
Council President, this is Jeremy, Mayor Grimm. I guess what I'd love to avoid, though, is us moving down a path where we go into further design, expend dollars for that design, and then there are, deal breakers, or we can't reach at least a majority vote to proceed. So if you can get your comments to Holly early, maybe we'll have to do a workshop, council workshop to, walk through options, but I would be very frustrated if we go to further in the design and then reach an impasse and have to either delay or waste money redesigning it. So at this point, if you can get your comments to Holly, that would be great. And secondarily, when we do have to remove these trees, which are a renewable resource, I'd love to be able to dedicate that firewood to either needy families or adjacent property owners if possible. So I look at that tree and see a year and a half of heating. So that's an impressive amount of wood.
It may be hollow in the middle of it. However, as far as renewable, you're not going to see a tree like that again. Just a
Right.
comment.
Yeah, and just a follow-up, Holly, can we, and council, what do you think about the idea if we did narrow the lanes by a foot, it would appear that would gain us 2 feet, go down to 11, and then could we add that 2 feet to one side or the other on the sidewalk to address Councilman Howard's issue and make it an even wider sidewalk that functions more like a bike path sidewalk?
Madam President, if I may comment, I think it's silly that we're talking about changing road widths here and there. We need to adopt standards that we all agree to and abide by those standards. And to go from 14 on parts of the city and to 11 in another, in my mind, is a bit crazy. And again, standards is what we need to go focus on and versus making custom decisions for every street.
Madam President.
Councilman Tribe.
Yeah, I have obviously a lot of comments, and I will just start by saying that this design is not at all acceptable, in my opinion. So we really do need to address some of the deal breakers in order for me to vote for this in the future. I think if you look at lane width standards, 12-foot lanes are for freeways. That's how wide freeway lanes are. And there's a lot of research out that shows unequivocally that 12-foot lanes cause many, many, many more accidents than 9 or 10-foot lanes, which are the standard for residential streets. Now, if you use 9 or 10-foot lanes, you would have enough width for a bike path. I agree that sharing the road with the cars for a cyclist is extremely dangerous, especially when you have freeway lane widths that are going to encourage people to speed. And even putting a bike lane on the side of the road, I think, is problematic because it gets filled with snow in the winter, and that's just going to appear as a wider driving lane for a driver. So you could have a 10-foot driving lane and a 2-foot bike lane, and it's going to appear just like a 12-foot driving lane to the driver. So I think somehow protected bike lane is the solution to what Councilor Howarth is referring to. And I don't see any traffic calming measures in this design at all. And I think that this tree in question is the perfect location for a traffic calming measure. We have 6 to 8 foot planters on each side, so we could absolutely deviate the street. And not only would we save this tree, but we would create a safer street for the children who live on this street, for the cars whose driveways back out onto this street. So at this point, 12-foot lanes, no traffic calming. I'm not able to accept this design at all.
Council President.
Councilor Sparrow.
I believe I'm here in open house for council again to discuss this, so.
I would agree, Councilor Sparrow. So maybe we will have to come back and revisit.
We'll schedule an open house with a workshop just for the council to vet and try to come to consensus.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Do we have any more information? Ms.
No
Ellison?
more information. I do just want to make sure that I've got the comments so that when we have this open house, it's productive. I'm hearing traffic calming, and bike considerations.
Yeah, and
tree
I'll give
saves.
you my other comments through email too.
Great.
just in preparation for
Council
that. Thank
President,
you.
if there was, I don't remember if there was a traffic study there, that if you can, maybe I missed that, if you include that as well, how busy that street is.
We do have, yes, we do have that
Awesome, thank you.
information. Yep. The only other information I would have to share just briefly, I know lane widths is a hot topic. I think there's many ways to address traffic calming. Lane widths is a really good tool to have. We have a lot of other tools that we can utilize. This is a turning. This is in your council packet as well. This is our fire truck turning on Cedar Street. And this is what it looks like to do a turn. So you can see that it uses these, if a fire truck was to go down the future Cedar Street today and make a turn onto Madison, you can see that it has to use the oncoming lane of traffic. The red line shows if the road was 20 feet wide. So we do have to just be mindful of who our users are, and if we do decide to reduce the lane width, what impact that might have. So if this red line was the curb line, it would mean that our fire trucks would have to get up on the curb and use the curb to make the turn. We might be able to flush that design, but in our current design, that's what it would take for our fire truck to make that turn. So that's just something to be thinking about when we look at lane widths.
Council President, just real quick on this, what size width are the streets here?
In the gray is the design, so that's
Okay.
two 12-foot lanes,
So-
and then the red line, it would show two 10-foot lanes.
So if it was an emergency, I just want to really quick understand, if it's already crossing over as it's turning on Cedar, could it just switch lanes on Madison and just make a wider turn since it's already disrupting the flow of traffic? Would that work? So the fire truck just does a wider turn right at the intersection of Cedar and Madison?
Oh, they like start from on the other side.
Yeah, I mean, it's already disrupting the other side and it's an emergency, the lights are on. Just a thought that might.
Unless there was a vehicle that stopped there. and it couldn't.
Then we'll put a plow truck, I'm just kidding, okay.
Sounds viable.
Madam President,
Councilman Schreiber.
just a quick question about this. How often do fire trucks in our community have trouble with corners like this?
I'm not sure. I don't know if Gavin would feel comfortable.
Curb radius, turning, small streets.
Depends if I mean, if there's parking on the side of the street.
Gavin, gotta come to the mic, please.
We'll do split screen, don't worry.
Talk about that, I get sitting over there, I just yell.
We saw.
Nature of your
So-
profession.
Well, what was the question? I guess turning radius?
Turning radius up here in these pictures, how often do fire trucks currently have trouble on our narrower roads, 10-foot width?
I would have to go ask the crews, more so than myself. I do hear, every once in a while, the comments of, well, making that turn, but people park. So it's, you have to navigate if they're parking on the side of the road, especially in the wintertime when we're, plowing snow and stuff. You start with this, and as it plows go, it just kind of keeps creeping in. And sometimes it's not even turning, sometimes it's just going down the straightaway. I know this one down on Pine, when they're parking there and they're plowing there, it gets, even in my truck, just, driving, it gets a little dicey just because they get closer, people keep getting closer and closer. That Cedar Street, I actually drove that Cedar Street road the other day, and it was me and there was a lady coming the other way in a little small SUV, and I was in my pickup. She came to a complete stop basically to let me kind of navigate around, and it was because of the snow. So, it's just kind of, it all goes back to design.
Is there parking allowed on
No, not at 12.
Cedar?
There's parking today in certain areas, but a lot of it is signed no parking.
Madam President, Chief, what can we, is it a possibility for us to look at smaller apparati? I've traveled the world and seen fire response apparatus that are far smaller than ours. Can you look into future purchases and what we could look at to avoid this kind of situation?
We certainly can dive in and look at some of the research, some of the issues you run into. You start getting smaller. So when you get to the ISO ratings, certain engines have to have certain, or fire apparatus have to have certain water tank capacities. They have to carry a certain amount of gear. Traditionally, trucks have been getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger over the years. And it's, it just doesn't equate to their price also gets bigger too. But if you want to go to smaller trucks like the mini pumpers and things like that, they are not NFPA compliant, and you're actually, manufacturers force you to sign a waiver saying that you will accept something out of their factory that's not compliant with fire standards. We can look. I haven't really researched smaller ones. I've been in a position where you have to buy a truck that will fit into the station. You have to measure the station and go find a truck that fits in it because they just keep getting bigger. So I can take a look.
Yeah, and the obvious challenge is as we accommodate roadways for larger trucks, we have wider lanes and faster turning radiuses, which can relate to more pedestrian vehicular conflicts. And yeah, it's a vexing problem.
It's certain manufacturers build trucks with different steering systems, have tighter crimp angles, make tighter turns. They make them, but then if you, to me, it seems they're not all of them make that. So you may end up hog tying yourself in or pinning yourself into a corner on, you can only buy a certain manufacturer and you're kind of held. It's probably down the line, but if you get to that point, then you're kind of held. That's the only one you can buy. And if they start jacking the price way up, then you're really stuck. But yeah, we'll definitely take a look at it.
Thanks, Chief.
Just to clarify, our current trucks on our current roads do not consistently have problems where they cannot get through because of too narrow of lanes?
Not usually, no. Not under normal conditions. It usually depends on the parking. It depends on snow. Some of the ones, we've caught some that have had the actual angle of the turn, the degree of the turn. Some of them will be a little tight. So you kind of, you kind of know which ones those are. It's usually where the bulb outs are. We caught a couple of times, I keep telling them, like, we're gonna have to buy curb feelers for the trucks because it can get tight. But I know, especially right now, during this time of year, we've did some work on the ladder trucks. Well, the crews use the older reserve truck in place of that ladder truck just because the newer truck is so much longer and the turning radius, it's like driving a limousine. It's terrible. But they like that shorter wheelbase, so. Good. Yep.
Thank you.
Nothing else for my update unless there are any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Ellis. And it sounds like we're going to have a workshop on this, so council will get an opportunity to have lots more input. Okay, we will now move on to a resolution approving an agreement with the Local Highway Technical Assistance Council accepting Children Pedestrian Safety Program grant funding for Phase 2 of the Division Avenue Corridor Safety Improvement Project. And again, we'll yield the floor to Holly.
Thank you, Councilor President. This is the Child Pedestrian Safety Grant. You'll remember this went to council to approval to apply for the grant. This is a state funded grant. They, fortunately, LTAC, the Local Highway Technical Council, found
additional federal funding, and they were able to program many child pedestrian safety grant projects, including Sandpoints. So background on Division Avenue and kind of where this project came from. The city of Sandpoint did a road safety audit from Division from Michigan to Spruce. That safety audit informed the multimodal transportation master plan. In 2021, Sandpoint applied for a child pedestrian safety grant to implement part of this project, and that project was successfully completed early fall of 2023. So the full, there's a concept to the right, the full future build out of what's envisioned for a division is at the bottom. And this is kind of an intermediate project phase, and I'll get into more details. Today, the existing conditions of Division is an arterial road, so it sees a lot of traffic, including truck traffic. There is narrow sidewalk. There is often no planter strip on Division, so the sidewalk is directly adjacent to the roadway. There's also non-compliant curb ramps that do not comply with ADA. We also have over 1,000 students who attend school on Division, so many folks of all ages walking along the corridor. So the picture here highlights our snow service and how when we plow Division Avenue, often the snow goes right on the sidewalk. We did do a pavement marking pilot last year to change our snowplow operations to use the road itself as snow storage. That's seen a lot of success. Our plows are not always able to keep the snow in the road. For example, earlier this year, there was a very wet snow condition where we had snow and then we had rain and there was a lot of slush. When the plows tried to just plow the travel lane and keep the sidewalk clear and put the snow in the bike lane, it just came right back out into the road. So weather permitting, in the right snow condition, we can use the road for snow storage. But in the event that you've got that slush condition and it moves a lot, our plows are having to put it off the road, which in this case means on the sidewalk. The picture on the right is a picture of the first phase of the Division Street project. This is between Highway 2 and Superior, where you can see the sidewalk is removed from the curb. There's now a planter strip providing a place to put snow in the winter and a place to plant trees. So phase 2 seeks to pick up that first phase and continue north. So picking up and making its way to Pine Street. These are a couple pictures showing the challenges that we have today. Again, non-compliant curb ramps, a lot of ADA challenges, and very few trees. Here is a map of phase 2. So phase 2, as described, would pick up at Superior and fill in the east side of Division with a new sidewalk that's ADA compliant, including ramps with a planter strip. So information on the grant. The purpose of the Child Pedestrian Safety Grant is to address safety and mobility for children. So projects that are adjacent to schools often score best. It is administrated by the local Highway Technical Assistant Council, known as LTAC. The award for the project is $250,000. As I discussed, originally when we applied for this grant, it was for state funding with very minimal strings attached. This is federal funding. However, Sandpoint will not be a direct recipient of those federal funds. LTAC will receive those funds and be responsible for them. The project must be completed by August 31st of 2026. Our goal will be to get this project done this summer while school's out of session. Buy America will apply. There is no match required by the grant, but we do anticipate that this project will exceed the grant of $250,000. So the city will has budgeted for out of its general fund the use for construction over that amount. And the request before council is before you on the screen.
Any questions from the council? Okay, I did have one comment that I was gonna ask if phase 3, that we can start thinking about doing some more work down by the elementary school where the children are smaller, and I think you've heard that comment from me before. So looking forward to phase 3, maybe starting at the other end and moving toward the middle. So at this time,
Council President, and also I just want to remind Holly, I know, Council President, you had concerns about our tree planting and the viability of those. So hopefully Eric and Holly, we can come up with a either bags or some improved technique for ensuring viability of those trees that we plant there.
thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm hoping maybe we can, while we're doing this phase, replant the ones that did not survive, but
Would you like me to speak to that?
yeah, if you could, please.
So our historically it was our neighborhoods program where the city would provide a street tree to a resident. The caveat is that the resident would be responsible for maintenance, and that maintenance is particularly important on the first 2 to 3 years. So we do our best to educate the adjacent property owner before we give them a tree and say, this is what needs, these are the tree needs to make sure that it takes off and can take root. We have the success in the education and the actual follow through on our adjacent residents in maintaining the trees is some residents are able and they do care for their tree and their tree is healthy. Other folks do not keep up with the required maintenance. So we are looking into kind of revamping that. The mayor mentioned water bags potentially. We don't have irrigation systems. It wouldn't, for Division Avenue right now, it wouldn't make sense to put in an irrigation line, but that's something that we'll be working on. Can we provide water bags for these trees, and how can the city take on that responsibility for the first couple of years until the tree really is ready to have less maintenance and a little less care.
Okay, thank you very much for that update and looking into new ways to maintain our trees. Now I will entertain a motion to approve the resolution for the LTAC Local Agreement 2024 Child Pedestrian Safety Program Division Avenue Corridor Safety Improvement Project Phase 2, City of Sandpoint, CPS number 24.
So moved.
Second. Okay, this will be a roll call vote.
Counselor Duquette,
Yes.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Schreiber,
Yes.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Howard,
Yes.
Counselor Sprow.
Yes.
Madam President, motion passes.
Thank you very much. And the sixth item for a final item on the agenda this evening, council will consider a resolution that will accept preliminary design for rehabilitation of the downtown parking lot and authorize staff to transition the project to the final design stage and advertise for bids. I will now again yield the floor to Holly.
Thank you, Council President. Eric Bush is the project manager on this project, and something that's unique about this project, we started with a consultant. Our consultant engineer did a survey for us, and they did preliminary design to best use our funds. Brandon Staglin, the city engineer, he was able to pick up the preliminary design and finalize it. So we saw a lot of cost savings to that. So Eric Bush will be presenting the project, this rehabilitation project, to council tonight. And Brandon is here to talk about kind of the engineering technical details. Our purpose is to repave this parking lot, before the summer season, before Lost in the 50s. So as Eric will report, time is of the essence. I learned that this project has been budgeted by Sura since 2014 and every year since. So in support of no longer kicking the can, we have a plan and ready to present it to council tonight, and hopefully we can get this project done before Lost in the 50s.
Eric, if I can just interrupt before you begin, council, I actually made the motion to fund that project in 2014 when I was on Sura. This city parking lot, in my mind, serves as our welcome gateway entrance mat to all visitors. It reflects tremendously on the first impression someone has of our community. I've been a huge proponent of this project since 2014, and I'm thrilled it's before you. The goal isn't to get this fixed and rehab by just for Lost in the 50s. It's just that starts the tourist season, and we obviously don't want to be ripping this up in the middle of tourist season. So the spring is the ideal time to get this underway. One of the more exciting things about this project that's come to focus is you'll notice that it eliminates the exit and entrance on the north and south side of the parking lot. If you look at those road alignments, there are bike paths, there are back in and back out driveways. There are one of the most popular daytime restaurants in Sandpoint. There's intersections. So you'll see that this design removes those conflict points and brings them onto Third, the entrance onto Third. And then finally, the design anticipates paid parking in the future and takes into account once that process is settled, the area needed to install a automated parking system into this lot. With that, I look forward to your support and questions that you have for staff and myself.
Counselors, Eric Bush, project manager. So I've got a kind of motion in front of you that was included in your council packet that I'll skip for now. But give you a little bit more background on the project. As Mayor Grimm indicated and Holly indicated as well, the project was initially budgeted in 2014. So we're 11 years past the original kind of initiation of the project from a budget perspective. But from history, the parking lot was last paved in the early 1980s. We don't have an exact date for that, but we did take over that location in 1976. So it's been 40 plus years since the parking lot's received any maintenance. The asphalt's in poor condition. The existing lighting is in poor condition and doesn't adequately light the parking lot. Nearly all of the existing spaces do not comply with our city code dimensional standards, meaning the length and width of the parking stalls, in addition to the drive aisles in between the stalls. So kind of moving into some of the existing conditions, you can see the poor asphalt condition in the two photos in there. And you can see kind of in the bottom left photo and the top right photo of the screen here, where those lack of dimensional standards kind of come into play. You can see car and tire tracks coming up and over the dirt area adjacent to the tree in the bottom left photo, and I don't recall if there's a tree adjacent to in the top right photo, but you can see that is an additional concern, and that is due to the dimensional requirements for turning radiuses in a parking lot. For the kind of repaving of the parking lot, we'll be installing dark sky compliant lighting. We're working with a couple different organizations to figure out the kind of final details of that, one of which is Avista and another is a kind of a local contractor. This will result in improved ADA access, meaning additional ADA parking spaces, as well as getting from the parking lot to this adjacent sidewalk, regardless of which direction you're going. Additional stormwater treatment, new shade trees, new entrance along 3rd Avenue, as Mayor Grimm indicated. And additionally, staff presented this concept to the Ped Bike Committee at their February 13th meeting. I believe Brandon presented that. So moving into the kind of layout and overall design of the parking lot, I'll kind of turn it over to Brandon at this point to walk through. And he can indicate why the decisions were made that you see in front of you.
Yeah, thanks, Brandon Staglin, city engineer. you probably all had a chance to review this, so I'll keep it brief. This concept right here is what we're recommending, which is, as you've heard comments already, to essentially remove the trees and put them in locations that provide for a better parking layout. So that's what the green tree-like blocks are shown on there. I'm showing 6 on there. Keep in mind, this is a preliminary design, so there's plenty of room for comment and direction from city council. As Eric mentioned, in my opinion, the dimensional standards of the parking spaces in the existing lot don't meet our off-street parking standards that we would hold private development to. So the intent of this is to bring it up to that, at a minimum, to that standard. And just anecdotally, I know from trying to make turning movements in that parking lot my whole life that when you get to the end of those access aisles, it can be pretty difficult if you're in a full-size truck. So that's the intent there. We are also regrading the parking lot in a way that allows us to send more of the stormwater to existing treatment facilities that we installed. Those basins, rain gardens, what you want to call them, that we did with I believe it was the first phase of downtown redesign. I wasn't around for that. And also the big safety benefit of moving the access to a single spot off of 3rd Avenue, in my opinion, is to prevent pedestrian conflicts at the intersections of Church and 3rd and Oak and 3rd. It makes it so that cars can no longer have to cross that newly striped green bike lane on Oak. I like the idea of having the cars coming in and out of the parking lot have to go to a stop controlled intersection at the end of either block, no matter which way they're turning in and out. So it stops cars from being able to kind of scream in and out of the parking lot the way that they can now. So that's the benefit of it. It also allows, we're going to kind of change the circulation patterns. You can see those arrows it's all one way. So you'd come in off of 3rd Street, turn right, and you'd pick one of those loops to go around. And if you couldn't find a spot, you could keep looping back around. I think, I also want to add that this also shows updated, correctly dimensioned and numbered ADA accessible spaces that meet the newly released for public right-of-way accessibility guideline standards that require that for angled parking, the access aisles are on the passenger side of the car. Right now, the number of parking spaces that you see on these exhibits are going to be in flux as we go through final design. This is just preliminary. But with the number of spaces that I'm showing there, I calculate that we were required to have 5 spaces. I'm showing 6 just to make sure that we have an extra one. And it might help us kind of count that for our overall downtown parking ADA spaces. So I always find it helpful to just show an extra ADA space there. It can't hurt. The other thing to note is that with this design, they're all standard parking spaces with the lengths, except for on the bottom of the page there. North is to the right of the page. So the bottom of this page, the east side of the parking lot, that entire row that's adjacent to the bank will be compact parking spaces. Everything else will be normal parking spaces. I would argue that a majority, like Eric kind of mentioned, a majority of the existing spaces are probably sized for compact spaces, which again, anecdotally, we all probably know that it can get pretty tight in there with a lot of pickups. And so this can alleviate that. The other advantage of this as well, I want to note, is it makes it easier for our plow crews. We have our streets crew plows this parking lot. The less number of islands and objects in the way makes it easier for them to just scrape it and haul the snow out. So I think that that's kind of the summary of it.
And one additional comment regarding the layout, the parallelogram that you kind of see in the upper center of your screen. The reason those areas are striped out and on either side of the new entrance is indicated there, that's to give us room in the future for controlled parking access, depending on what system we ultimately select via an RFP or RFQ process. That allows us flexibility, so we're not basically putting vehicles in the way of whatever that ultimate solution is. If we don't end up going with a larger solution and it's something smaller, it's possible that some of that area, the parallelogram area, could be striped for parking spaces, but it's shown that way currently to allow flexibility to accommodate something in the future.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks, Eric. And I also want to add that, again, this is preliminary design, so you are not required to necessarily approve or accept this design as shown on there. You have the ability to direct staff to, move towards final design with conditions or with direction on how to revise the design as a body. So just wanted to, as you're deliberating, just keep that in mind.
Council President?
Moving on real quick, I just have a couple
that's
more
good.
items.
No, please do. Please.
Apologies. So kind of just quick next steps, because I imagine that's some of what would be asked. We're going to do some outreach to the downtown businesses and adjacent, kind of facilities, because a lot of folks that work downtown park there, and let them know that, the parking lot's going to be under construction for a few weeks while we complete this project. We're going to go be presenting kind of this, well, sir, we presented this concept to SURA at the February meeting, and we'll be going to the SURA meeting again in March in a couple weeks, and kind of moving forward in the process. Our hope is to go out to bid later in March with construction in April or May. The goal is to be complete with asphalt prior to loss in the 50s. As I said, we anticipate construction is going to last for about 3 weeks. These projects are pretty quick. When you get an asphalt contractor in there, they can remove the existing and replace in pretty short order. We're also hoping that and planning that city staff, some of our streets crews, will do some of the demolition work, which will save us some funding and allow us to complete the parking lot project as shown. We've got about $150,000 in our fiscal year 25 budget currently. You can see our cost estimate wildly exceeds that, and we'll be addressing that with SURA in the March meeting. That's part of the to present again to SURA at that time. With that said, that's all I have. So happy to answer any questions or discuss anything you'd like.
Councilman Spiro?
Yeah, a couple things. If Ms. Belfry's comments, and we have her papers here, were pretty compelling in some areas. Are these trees in the picture? I don't know if you want to pull it up or not. The 6 trees, are those going to be newly planted trees, or are those already part of the existing trees?
The layout as shown on the screen is new trees.
Okay, that we're going to plant.
Correct.
Do you know how many trees we are removing from the parking lot?
Total number, I don't know off the top of my head. Trees of, let's say, substantial size, I would say about 6.
Okay.
And at least 3 of those trees have broken crowns, meaning the top of the tree has snapped. Those trees are dead. They may show green currently, but they won't remain alive for much longer.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm trying to see it on Google Maps, and I can't really.
I believe it's 7 trees plus an 8th tree, which is the cluster of those cedars that.
There's 3 in that.
Are they cedar? I'm not a
3
tree guy.
cedars.
Cedars, yeah. So that's the 8th. I don't know if you count that as one tree or not.
Ms. Belfry said that there's no professional input from a credential arborist.
Yeah.
Is that
Councilman Spiro, if you don't mind me interrupting, I'd just like
Yeah,
to
go
speak
ahead.
to that and apologize that you were put in this situation today. One of the reasons I was so excited about our commissions and committees, of course, was that we could get qualified, consensus from our experts. And in this case, we haven't received that yet because it's preliminary design. I we will avoid in the future, a situation where an individual commission member comes and feels as though, you know, the city's not receiving qualified input. That's the purpose of the tree commission. So, in that regard, this preliminary design, we would intend to call a special meeting of the tree commission to get their feedback and recommendation and consensus on the path forward in regards to, those trees.
Awesome. I appreciate that, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, because with respect, I want to be clear that although I think redoing the parking lot is a really good idea, I personally don't think Sandpoint has a problem with people not wanting to come here because of ugly parking lot. I mean, I see it every day because I look out the window. And anywhere I go, the first thing I don't look at parking lots, but so I just want to make sure we do it right, that the comments are being heard from the public and the commission. So I appreciate you bringing that to light. So thank you.
Any other comments, discussion?
Council President?
Councilman Howard?
Yes, I've got numerous questions and comments. First of all, you said new lighting and there's I think there's 4 light stands here, if I see it correctly. Is that sufficient lighting to hit the edges of the parking so there's lighting for all spots at night?
We don't know yet. This is still preliminary. Those are just placeholders to show that we are gonna put lighting. They're gonna move around. They may be added to or removed. We are going to get somebody to design that lighting. We don't really have anybody that's, electrical engineer needs to design the illumination.
Counselor Howarth, those lights would likely be twin head fixtures, meaning one head of the fixture would face west and one would face east. So you're really getting 2 lights out of a fixture in that context. You've seen them in parking lots. It just typically isn't something that stands out. So from that respect, there is more lights than what's shown on the plan. And the other portion of your question, we have street lights along Third, Oak, and Church currently. There are kind of ornamental fixtures that are throughout town, the green fixtures.
Yeah,
So you do get additional light on the edges of the property with the existing lights that border the parking lot as well.
Can you, looking at this diagram, can you tell me what the scope of this project is? Because you have sidewalks, you have the tree wells, you have the bubbles out. What is the scope? Is it just the parking lot? Is it all of this? What is the scope that you're trying to get approval to move forward on?
The scope of the project that was directed by the mayor was to get the parking lot repaved. So in service of that direction, that's what you have in front of you. But there's obviously additional factors beyond asphalt that are being considered. Stormwater, lighting, obviously, plant materials. So there's a number of items that are considered and components of this project.
So new sidewalks.
No, let me answer that. I think I know what you're asking. All of the sidewalks around this perimeter of the parking lot are the existing sidewalks to remain.
Okay, but
We'll have to cut out a section to build that driveway, obviously, and re-pour that sidewalk.
how about the tree wells that are between the sidewalk and the street?
Out in the right of way, we're not really proposing anything on the right of way. Those are all remaining. So street trees along the street, all of the existing lighting, all of the signage is gonna remain unless we need to move it out of the way in order to do what we're trying to do on the interior of the parking lot.
And we don't currently have the bubbles on Third and on either end of Third, right?
The what? I'm sorry,
The 2 bubbles there.
Kind of this looking.
Oh, the bulb outs.
Bulb-
Okay. Yeah. That's what it is right now.
That is what it is right now?
That represents the survey pickup. So
That's already existing?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, one comment. I know that you're thinking, hey, let's go to one entrance. Let's just play this out practically. So if I come in your one entrance and I come in, and as I come in, I have to turn to the
Right.
south,
Yeah.
right? All of that's filled up. So as I'm driving, I'm gonna then have to make a decision. Do I go down the middle or do I go all the way to the east?
Yep.
If I go down the middle and it's all full, then I have to come back around past the entrance So I'm gonna make like 2 loops all the way around the parking lot. I think that's highly inefficient. I actually think you're much better keeping your 2 entrances on the north and south side, so that when I come in on the north and south side, I can either go down the middle or I can take a right. And then I only have one other path before I've looked at all of the parking spots. Unless you have some sort of an intelligent system, and I didn't hear that in your plan, that says there's 10 available spots in the parking lot. I didn't hear that. And so people are going to have to visually try and assess what is open. So I think it's very highly inefficient. So you're going to have cars doing multiple loops, trying to find a parking space with that singular entrance. So I'm not a big fan of that. I think your 2 entrances on the north and south are much better options there. And by the way, I think if you got rid of that one, you would actually be able to get more parking spaces than you do today. Because if you have the north and the south, you're coming right into the center of the parking lot. This one, you're losing all of the parking spaces in front of, as you come into the entrance, that parallelogram that you've got there that's crossed out. You're not using that space for parking. So I think you could get more parking spaces if you came in on the north and south side as well. So those are my comments.
Councilman Howard, President Rule, if I could just comment, Councilman Howard, we did discuss that, and there's a couple of challenges. First, if you have that traditional existing entrance, the circulation path, because of the substandard size of these parking stalls, doesn't allow for a up and back type of travel. So you would still be looping around. If you went up any one of these routes, you'd still have to loop back around. And that's simply because that center travel lane or access lane is too narrow to have two-way traffic. So we can't really find a way to make traditional size spots and also provide two-way traffic down any of these lanes. Your point is absolutely well received, and recognize that the inefficiencies of this layout would require some circulation. If staff can pull up GIS of or just a Google image of the parking lot, I just want to point a couple of things out related to the conflicts of the existing parking lot. Just any old
Looks
map.
like Eric's pulling him up just a
Oh,
second.
thanks, Eric. That'll let me see the
I'm almost there.
Jeff Jones Square and Joel's Restaurant. Yeah, if you can just zoom out a wee bit. So right there on the north side, there's so much going on there, and maybe you can just zoom in a little bit on the north entrance. We've got literally the worst case scenario. We've got 2 dedicated bike lanes. We've got free-flowing traffic on Oak. We've got a stop sign on 3rd. Then we have cars backing out in front of Mr. Z's Taekwondo. It's just a recipe for an accident. There's just too many things going on, and people just can't look at everything that needs to be looked at, including the sidewalk. If you're pulling out and going right on Oak, you're going to probably not be looking at the sidewalk. People could walk in front of you. So lots of conflicts there. And then on the south, similar, I go through that intersections multiple times a day, and because of the popularity of and the great food there at Joel's, you get so many people crossing from the north. You've got people crossing from the west. You've got the intersection, uncontrolled east-west, and then you've got people coming and going from the parking lot. I myself almost get in an accident there every week. Not serious, but you know, it's tenuous. So I hear your concerns clearly, and it's not ideal. And I'm open to thinking about ways to address your concerns about inefficiencies. We do intend to implement smart parking lot meters that would show the row that has vacancy. Row A has 3 vacancies, row B has 6, row C has none. But it's one of the challenges we ran into of trying to improve this parking facility.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two comments. One is maybe we could get our police chief to monitor those people that don't use the crosswalks so that we don't have that liability going from the parking area over to Joel's. And I would only ask, how many accidents have we had in this parking lot in the last 2 years for the constrained areas that you have talked about?
You know, we'll have to get that data for you. I don't have that right now.
Thank you.
And I guess I'd also be interested, I mean, the simplest thing, we could just go in and rip up the pavement and repave it, throw down a third of an inch or an inch of asphalt. Is there any temperature on the council of, we can also delay it until the fall? I guess I'm seeking your guidance, in terms of a path forward, assuming we can go to the tree committee and get their feedback and incorporate that. How can we go around the horn, just get a temperature so I can get some direction?
Is, Mr. Mayor, if I might, is it an action item?
Mhm.
So
Yes.
It
should we
is.
just take a vote at this point for temperature, or what's appropriate? Is now Zach's pulling on his mic?
I think there's a fair bit of discretion here on how to proceed. If council wants to take a motion and vote, this council certainly can. If council wants to get a sort of an informal vote and make a decision and take a motion after that, that can be done as well.
Okay, Mr. Mayor, how would you like to proceed?
You know, I just like to go around the horn if it is as presented with feedback from the tree committee. What's your temperature? Would you be inclined to move forward or prefer to maybe do another, combine it with another workshop?
Left to right, which way you want to go?
We're gonna start with Joel.
All right, perfect. Real quick, I do have a quick question. Is there any electric car chargers gonna be? Okay, then.
Accommodation for the future, but nothing at this time. Well,
Okay, just,
conduits.
I forgot to ask that. I personally am okay with the single entrance. Oak Street is pretty crazy when I'm with my kids, when we all come down on our bikes. That definitely gives me a lot of anxiety. Nothing has happened that I'm aware of there. I'm very thankful for that. So I do, with respect, Mr. Howard, understand your proposal, but I'm okay with closing that off for, especially as town is getting busier. So with the tree committee discussion, I'm totally okay with moving forward to whether it's possibly a better design and if we can save some trees, or how many parking spots we're going to lose with keeping some of the trees. I think that discussion will be helpful. But with the closing the two sections, I'm okay with that. You're definitely going to get some grumpy trucks that pull trailers right into Church Street, right into the parking lot. They park there, run across the street, get some food. But again, this is a bigger picture. So I'm okay with moving forward with more input from the tree committee, personally.
Counselors, if I may, just one quick comment. There is the option to continue with repaving the parking lot without removing the two existing entrances. That portion can always come at a later date. We can include the Third Street entrance perhaps this fall, if that was a desired path, and leave the two entrances that are there currently. It wouldn't, aside from traffic flow inside the parking lot, it would have minimal impact on the layout as you see currently.
That's great. Yeah, I'm totally personally close Oak Street, maybe have the new entrance and keep Church or close that. I don't care either way.
Councilman Howard.
I'll start with this. There is a huge need that we need to go upgrade this parking lot. I think that's uncontested. At the same time, I do value the trees. But it seems, at least in your pictures, where they are at today is not conducive to upgrading the parking lot. And so I'm less worried about the trees. I'm still probably more stuck on the single entrance and the travel and just the flow of that parking lot. I understand the complexities on both the north and south side, but I think we're going to just have other complexities with just one in and one out. And so I would like a little bit more time to think about it and maybe have some discussions with the team on other options or opportunities, maybe to overcome my concerns on the flow inside of the parking lot.
Thank you, Councilman Howarth. Councilman Dick?
President, thank you. I concur. This is a much needed project. Eric, thank you for clarifying that we could potentially keep both the entrance exits. I'd be willing to keep both of those. Last year, when we were looking at some parking garage ideas, we had taken a look at the US Bank parking lot and adding that to the city parking lot. It's probably one of the most underutilized parking lots. I know we don't necessarily have money coming from all directions. US Bank could still have people enter through their drive-through and instead funnel out onto Second Street. And we could add that. Was there any conversation about that when looking at the rehab of this parking lot?
You know, Councilman Dick, this is Jeremy, the mayor. Not really. Really looking at just due to the extensive deliberations, discussions, lack of obvious funding. I was looking for a quick, simple project to start to make our community look nicer and show that we care about our infrastructure. So I'm not of the mindset of letting perfection be the enemy of good. I'm really looking at what can we do that's practical, that reflects our investment in our public spaces and can be accomplished. So no, haven't looked down that path at all.
Totally understandable. I think I would concur with Councilor Sparrow too. I would enjoy hearing the recommendations from the tree committee as well before moving forward. But definitely would like to move forward on this project as soon as possible.
Thank you, Councilman Dick. And I guess technically I'm next. So I would concur that input from the tree committee, since that's why we've committees together, would be important as we go past preliminary design. I would like to point out that we are Sandpoint, a walking friendly town, and we are full of bikes. And I think that closing both of the entrances puts the priority on pedestrians and bikers, which is very important in downtown. Yes, there will be some inconveniences for cars to circle, but I see plenty of cars circling in many of our box store parking lots just to get that spot next to the front door. So I don't think it's that huge of an inconvenience, and it will keep our bikers and walkers safer. So I would lean toward moving forward with preliminary design. Councilwoman Duquette.
I, of course, am going to go for saving the trees. I have the data from the IDL, all the pounds of pollutants that have been removed, all the CO2 that has been sequestered. I have it listed. I won't read it off. And the cubic feet of runoff, those trees, the cedar group. This picture, that's where the cedar group is, where that new tree is going to go. These two at the Oak Street end are where the spruce are already, and that one in the middle on the southeast parking, that new tree, that's where the lodgepole already is. And I'm in agreement definitely with Paige. She is a certified arborist, and she feels that it's worth saving. It's a renewable resource, but we don't get those trees like they are by planting new ones, except for maybe another 100 years. We want it to look nicer. Yeah, keep the trees, keep the shade. I also would like to see that kiosk we talked about, Mr. Mayor, about the map or whatever we decide to share what's where in town so people can actually park and then walk where they want to go. The EV on one of your pictures, you've got EV, unless they're smiley faces, On one of these, you've got a lot of them out on Church. And then you had a couple on the inside, because Holly, you and I had talked, not this picture, but one of your pictures in our packet has EV.
Those are outlet symbols
Right.
from the surveyor. They're like,
Oh, they're not for infrastructure for the, I would like to see infrastructure for the EV also. It's also in our comp plan. Yeah, so how it stands now, I would not go for it.
and just to add, we can add EV spaces, with the existing layout,
You don't have to put infrastructure in.
Well, we'd have to put infrastructure in,
I
but
would like to
you could
see that.
retrofit whatever we did.
And then, and
pretty
put that
easy with
in
any
whenever.
layout.
Okay,
Yeah.
whenever we can afford it.
Yeah.
That's where I am.
Thank you. Councilman Schreiber.
Thanks. Yeah. In addition to the concerns that have already been raised about that single entrance, I also thought, what happens if somebody can't find their credit card or has trouble getting out as they're trying to pay? And with a single entrance, that could block off the entire parking lot. Or if there's an emergency, that's also a problem. So that was one of the concerns that I had thought of with the single entrance. I thought the same thing as Councilor Duquette, that 3 out of the trees that are shown on this design that are, 4, are already existing. And so I'm hopeful that we could come up with a design that does protect those trees, as well as the 50-year-old oak trees on the neighboring property there. I'd be in support of a design that was able to accomplish that. Also, it does seem like a lot of impermeable surface. And so if we could somehow incorporate some water retention in addition to what's already there. I know you said that we're going to be using those boxes that are along the right of way, but it seems like some of these slashed areas could potentially have stormwater retention and remediation. I don't know if that's the correct word, but I guess those are my comments. If that design is going to take longer than what we can accomplish and have it done for Lost in the 50s, then I would definitely prefer to continue this project and complete it in the fall instead.
Counselors, if I may, Brandon did prepare an additional concept, and that's what is shown before you here. And this is with respect to maintaining the trees that are existing in the parking lot, not all of them. The ones that are high priority, the cedars in the southeast kind of island, that this layout here saves those trees. Councilor Duquette, the spruce I believe you're referring to on the northeast corner of the parking lot, if you can see where my cursor is circling here, that's one of the trees that has a broken crown. So that tree needs to be removed.
The other one.
On the kind of northwest corner of the parking lot where I'm circling here, that tree could be maintained, as well as the lodgepole that is on the kind of central eastern section of the parking lot. Beyond those 3 trees, or more if you consider the cedar more than one tree, there is little reason to expend effort or dollars saving anything else that's in the parking lot. What we could do is add additional trees to replace those other ones.
And how many Council President,
Councilman Spiro.
how many spots are you losing keeping this layout? Are you losing any?
We do have a reduction in spaces. Bear with me, I've got a bar blocking my screen. Brandon,
can I
go
just
ahead.
jump in? The location of the existing trees on this exhibit right here are not in the exact same location as where I showed the new ones on the other exhibit. They're in the same area, but they're moved a little bit in order to provide an adequate turning movement at the end of those bays. So if council wants to direct us to move forward with a design keeping the trees, that's absolutely possible. It's not unfeasible. But so that you're aware, of the trade-offs. We don't really lose total parking spaces or a significant amount of them. We might lose a couple. But there's two big factors. One of them is the turning movement at the end of those bays will continue to be inadequate. And secondarily, you can see the 4 trees on the, well, I guess it'd be the eastern middle row. You can see there's 4 white circles there. Those are the 4 existing trees that would be saved. We would build some planters around those, and we could still put parking spaces next to them, but a significant number of those parking spaces would need to be compact. So not just the entire row along the far east corner would be compact. We'd add another, 15 to 20 additional compact spaces. With the other layout, the number of compact spaces is actually really close to what the code requires, a maximum number. So the code for private development has off-street parking standards, and it says if you have this many spaces, you're allowed to have this many of them be compact. You can't have the whole parking lot be compact. The other layout was really close to that number of what we would make a private developer do. If we saved the trees, the trade-off is that we have a lot more compact parking spaces than you typically see in the parking lot. It's not the end of the world. We are still improving a lot of the parking spaces and making them larger than they are today. But that's the trade-off. Those are the two main trade-offs. Circulation, and you're adding more compact spaces.
People do drive around there now with those trees.
Yeah, that's true. But I have a responsibility to protect public safety as a professional engineer, and my argument would be that the space to make those turns at the end of those parking spaces right now is a safety hazard, because I've seen large trucks drive on the sidewalk. I mean, so it's a question of, do you want to save the tree, or do you want kids to get run over on the sidewalk? I'm not. I'm not saying those are your only two options, but
Not fair
that's,
at all.
I know, I knew. I just want to let you know where my head's at
Yeah.
when we're deciding
Yeah.
recommended layouts. That's where where my head's at. But again, it's not, if we save the trees, it's totally feasible. I just want you to be aware of the trade-offs.
Councilors, there's a couple additional things I'd like to touch on. I echo Brandon's comments. And Councilor Spiro, I don't know that we fully answered one of your questions earlier with respect to the ability to or the professional opinion of an arborist on these trees or any trees kind of throughout town. I'm not a professional arborist. I am the city's forester, and I'm also trained as a landscape architect and hold a license as such. And the difference between an arborist and a landscape architect in this context, I have a wealth of tree knowledge. An arborist looks at individual trees or clusters of trees for health and various characteristics. What I'm trained to do is look at what tree fits in what space. And I can rattle off any number of things to kind of be concerned about here. And I'm absolutely not saying that we can't or shouldn't save the trees. That's not the intention of this comment. I just want to draw attention to, there is cost associated with that. We have excavation challenges when we remove this parking lot and add subgrade material, gravel. That puts the root systems of these existing trees at risk. Much like some of the conversation that was had earlier regarding the Cedar Street project, is absolutely doable, and I think these trees are absolutely worth saving. But there is cost associated with it, and we will have to account for that in the budgeting process, or in the cost estimating process, excuse me.
Madam President, one follow-up question. So if we left those trees, the existing ones, the white bubbles that you've got there, would the root system continue to potentially crack the asphalt even as you redo it? Trees grow, roots continue to grow. Are we going to have trouble with the pavement in those areas?
You could. What typically causes tree roots to grow in asphalt depends on the species of trees. For example, maples tend to have more surface-oriented roots that spread as opposed to going deep into the soil. So with the presence of maples, which wouldn't be what we would recommend planting in this parking lot, that's absolutely a concern. With other species of trees, it's less a concern as they drive their roots deeper into the soil. However, given those comments, there is absolutely concern regardless of what species tree you plant. Primarily with respect to our soil conditions throughout town, we have heavy clay soils. Trees are no different than, us digging with a shovel. Trees and animals as well will take the path of least resistance. So when they reach a clay soil level that is really compact, their roots are not going to penetrate that as readily as a different. And that's the hands we were dealt in Sandpoint. Our soils throughout town. Obviously, trees grow well. That part isn't the concern. The concern is, long-term maintenance of our parking lot and damage of our asset, as well as just verifying that we're doing the most responsible thing.
Can I make a comment on those trees? Those trees are in fair or poor condition, according to the IDL, those that you've got marked to keep. I'm looking at the ones that the IDL tree inventory says are good trees. These, as I see, those were not listed as good trees. Those ones, those 4 white squares. I just want to say those aren't the ones I'm worried about.
This, as we mentioned earlier, is preliminary in nature.
Right. I just wanted to clarify that.
In this location, the lodge pole is the one tree kind of between the rows of north to south that is in good condition.
That's the good one.
Yes, correct. The other 3 are not trees that are in good condition.
Oh.
So don't look at this layout as the kind of final solution. All of those factors are being considered.
Okay.
Council President, I'd like to make a motion.
Sorry.
Mr. Mayor?
You go ahead.
So council members, the way I see this, right now, it looks like it could be a 3-3 vote with potentially Joel, Justin, and Deb supporting. And if it is, I intend to vote for it. Just want you to know the way I see this playing out is this would go to the tree committee for their input recommendation. It would be incorporated into the design and we would go fast and the council might not see this again. I mean, you'd see the final plan, but we would put it out to bid. In regards to the closures, if this doesn't work, we can always blast open that North Oak Street entrance as a second exit or entrance. We still don't know how the parking metering and fee is going to be implemented and what technology, but just wanted to be transparent with Joel, Dick, and Deb. If this is a tie vote, I would instruct staff to go to the tree commission and then work up their recommendations and any other feedback, not to be disrespectful, that the council has that we can incorporate, but to move forward as quickly as possible.
Council President Rule, sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to add one other clarification thing, and it's about the circulation around the trees. I agree that comment wasn't phrased
I know.
fairly. So I just do want to point out that regardless of whether we save the trees or don't, what we intend to do is have a curb between the asphalt and the sidewalk, regardless of whether that turning movement is large enough to keep people from driving on the sidewalk. So
I just think we're always going to have that discussion of progress versus preservation.
sure. Yeah.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the resolution accepting the preliminary design for rehabilitation of the downtown parking lot and authorizing staff to transition the project to final design and advertised for bids.
Earl, can I interrupt just for a moment?
Sure.
Can the movement just consider the resolution that's on the board? There's been a lot of discussion. The resolution on the board contemplates one entrance and approximately 128 spots, as well as a handful of other significant provisions. And so can the movement just consider that when making the motion so that they understand that they're not just voting on this resolution.
I'm not sure that I'm following you. So you want me to reread, which part of this do you want me to read as the resolution?
Council President Rule, you don't have to reread anything.
Okay.
So, because you asked to entertain a motion.
Mhm.
So my suggestion is that the movement consider the resolution, because if they just moved to approve the resolution, it will be for what's on the board right there. And
Unless
the key-
somebody
unless they amend it or
amend the motion.
clarify.
Mhm.
And the key points that I see, and staff can add in on this, are the approximately 128 spots and the one entrance.
Can she, excuse me, can she amend, can she make a motion in addition to going to the?
Anybody can make a motion that they want to at this point. I just want them to consider that, what they're moving for. Have I overcomplicated this?
No.
Nobody has made a motion.
No motions on the table yet. Yeah.
Mhm. So I'll let,
I
if
thought
somebody
you
else
just
has
made- I
a
thought you just made a motion. You said like
No, she said she would entertain a motion.
entertain. a motion.
entertainment.
I
So I was
apologize.
looking
So-
for a first and a second.
so
But
I
if
make a
somebody,
motion to move forward with the proposal to final draft in accordance to go into the tree committee for further discussion on either adding another or not taking away, only making it a one entrance. And yeah, I really don't know how to legally put it. so, Yeah. But
That's the tricky part.
well, I mean, we discussed to move forward to the tree committee. And I heard Mr. Mayor say that it may not even come back to us. So at the very least, I make a motion to move forward with the final plat, but in connection to conversations with the tree committee.
Council President Aspiro, Councilman Aspiro, can I suggest that the motion is to move forward with the resolution and to bring the preliminary design to the tree committee for incorporation of their recommendations and then proceed?
Yeah, I'm fine with that. There's other things said along with that, whether it's taking away or not taking away entrances, but I'm fine with that personally.
so,
I'll second.
okay. I don't know if we had a first. I'll first, you second. Oh, you have a first. Okay, we got a second. So I guess we move on to the roll call vote. Are we there?
I believe.
Okay, okay. That was a little complicated. I think we're all tired. So, okay, this will be a roll call vote, if you will, please, Madam Clerk.
Counselor Sprow,
Yes.
Counselor Schreiber,
I like this project, but I don't think it's quite done yet, so I'm going to vote no.
Counselor Howarth,
I'm with the same. I think we're in a rush when we don't need to be in a rush, and so my vote is no.
Counselor Dick,
Yes.
Counselor Rule,
Yes.
Counselor Duquette.
I also have to say no. I know we need repavement, but I don't like moving fast on things without good discussion and good decision. So no.
Madam President, there's a tie. Mayor Graham, you will need to vote to break that tie.
I vote yes, and with the comment that we will keep you posted, and if there are conflicts or better ideas that come up, we will brief you on it.
Madam President, motion passes.
And this meeting is adjourned at 8:47.